Okay, welcome everybody. This is a session of the Committee of the Whole for the County of Annapolis on a lovely November day. What I call the new council, which is the council that started a year ago. This is the first time we've actually had a meeting in our regular council chambers. So I'm sure those of us that haven't been here before are looking forward to it, and those that were here before feel happy to be back at home. So hopefully this will work out quite well. And for those people that are watching, we also have the ability to have councilors attend by Zoom, and the deputy warden is attending on Zoom. So that's another technological advance that we've made. The proceedings are live on Facebook, and they will be taped and put up on our regular Vimeo channel within 24 hours. So I'll begin with the roll call. District 1.
Bruce Sprague.
District 2.
Brian Buzzball.
District 3 is Alan Parrish, myself. District 4.
Floyd Berto.
District 5.
Lynn Longmire.
District 6.
Alec Morrison.
District 7.
David Hudson.
District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9.
Wendy Sheridan.
District 10.
Brad Redden.
And District 11.
Diane DeJoy.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the disclosure of interest. If anybody anticipates declaring a conflict, they can tell us now, or they can tell us when the issue comes up. Seeing none, I'll move along to the next item on the agenda, and that's the approval of the agenda. There are two matters that I'm going to speak to at the moment. You'll see in your package there was some material with respect to an application for a grant with respect to the wharf at Cotw. That is going to be item number 616 under new business. And I think I'll mention that item number 615, a matter just before 616, is a recommendation regarding a paving contract at Queen Street for additional funds. The tenders came in, and there's another $28,000 that's required. So this issue is on the agenda. It'll come before Committee of the Whole, but because of the lateness of the season, the Committee of the Whole is of the view when we discuss this matter that they do want to recommend that Council approve it. The plan is to have a special Council meeting immediately after this Committee of the Whole meeting, so that if in fact the recommendation is positive, or perhaps even if it isn't, Council can deal with that matter. Suffice that if we do plan to go ahead, that we'll do it before the winter sets in. Councillor Cotw?
Can we deal with the Cotw one if it passes in that special council meeting too? Because it's a contract they're trying to deal with too, and it's getting late in the season.
Well, two things. First of all, the Cotw issue it's really a governance question, and I'll explain it when we get to that. And also the clerk tells me that for special council meetings we can only have one item on the agenda, but maybe we'll have two special council meetings. I don't know. So I'm afraid we'll have to deal with that after, and please feel free to bring it up again. Okay, anything else for the agenda? Councillor Morrison.
I'd like to add an item, and that is observance of Remembrance Day.
Where would that go?
In the new item.
Under new business? I think that's quite appropriate. So that would be 617, would it? 617. Let me just make a note of that. Thank you for that, Councillor Morrison. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll ask that the agenda be approved as amended. someone make
So
that
moved.
moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Longmire. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Next is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole minutes from October the 12th, 2021. Any comments, corrections? I have one, and that's on page 9 of 99, where I was explaining the situation that we'll discuss in more detail later today about whether or not Annapolis County wants to join the pilot project with the other municipalities in the Annapolis Valley. And on the second paragraph on page 99, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth line, you'll see the line begins, "Warden does not get a vote." I should put after that, "on some issues." And I'll explain that in more detail today as we get to that matter. Are there any other changes to the minutes as circulated?
Move to accept.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Redden seconds. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, business arising from the minutes. The first 5.1 is a recommendation report regarding the Regional Emergency Management Bylaw. Let me just pull that up here. That's on page 13 of 99. And there are recommendations from staff. There are 3 recommendations. I imagine we should deal with these one by one. Deputy Warden, would you like to read the recommendations from staff?
Shall I read them off one at a time or 3 in a row?
One at a time, please.
We're going to do one at a time, I think, Deputy Warden.
Okay, good. 1, recommendations. That pursuant to the recommendation of the Regional Emergency Management Advisory Committee, Municipal Council give first reading to approve C6 Regional Emergency Management Bylaw as circulated.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Longmire seconds it. So the bylaw, I'll just indicate the first reading of the bylaw is the point of the motion. And the bylaw is on pages 15, 16, 17 of your package. I'm going to make a comment, but not that it's going to change any view on this particular matter. If you want to follow along, if you want to turn to page 16 of 99, under numbers 8 and 9. Now, these sections 8 and 9 on page 16 of 99 state that when there's a state of local emergency and there are 2 or more parties to the agreement, that means 2 or more municipalities, the warden shall authorize the advisory committee to act in their stead. In other words, instead of the wardens and mayors. And it's per section 15(1)(b) of the Act. So, me being me, I looked up section 15(1)(b) of the Act. And that says that the warden may, doesn't say the warden shall. So, I had a discussion with staff about this before the meeting. And I learned that one of the other municipalities had passed the bylaw this way, and we had basically copied that particular municipality. I still had difficulty with it referring to an act and being different than the section in the act. So I don't think this is something we can figure out today. I'm going to support the motion. I've identified the issue, and I may have further discussions with staff, and maybe that particular item might come back before us to amend the bylaw at some point, should we feel it appropriate. But I'm going to vote in favor of the motion that's on the floor at the moment. I just wanted to point out that discrepancy to you. Any other comments? Councillor Cotw?
Yeah, when a local state of emergency is declared, I would think having the whole committee involved would be chaotic, where we had one person sitting with the other emergency providers to work on that problem would be more sensible.
That was my view as well.
I agree with you too.
That was my view as well.
I know from working in one of the emergency providers before, a spokesperson worked a lot better than having a whole committee there. So I agree with you, it should be at the discretion of the board.
Councillor Barton?
Just point of clarification, is that committee, are we considering it as a committee of the municipality, or is that a committee of the emergency measures, which includes representatives from the other bodies involved?
I think the latter. It's
Yeah.
not our committee. It's
So-
a regional advisory committee, I believe.
Yeah, it wouldn't be us sending a body of people to sit in with another body. We would have representatives on that committee, which is the wardens and mayors anyway, isn't it?
You know, that's my problem. This is getting deep into the weeds, and I can't particularly answer that very good question sitting here today.
So maybe that whole line item would be irrelevant.
Well, I think we need to have something here, and I hope that hopefully there aren't any more emergencies, but we have to be ready when they are, and rather than get tied up on this today, I thought I'd bring that to everybody's attention. I'll speak to staff more, and if we want to amend the bylaw, we will, is my own view. Councillor Prout?
Thank you. You had mentioned section 8 and 9. I assume the issue you have with 9 is the same. It states the warden shall, and
Yes.
maybe when we went to the act, it says may.
Yeah, it says may. It's the same section referred to, 15 would be. Ms. Campbell?
May I suggest, Mr. Warden, that you not do first reading if you wish to make changes? If you want to make changes subsequent to first reading, the process has to start again.
I did speak to Ms. Campbell about this yesterday, and as you can see, I'm a little bit still at sea, and her suggestion is that we move it to the next committee of the whole meeting, or is that what you would suggest? And then we have a better explanation about this for the next meeting?
My suggestion is not to do first reading and consider further changes, or to make changes today during the first reading, which is to strike the two sections in question, or alternatively to change the word shall to may.
My difficulty with changing the word shall to may is I'm still a little at sea of exactly how this works. As the question to Councillor Bartow, is this the regional advisory committee that would take over? And you're saying yes, it is. And I don't really know who's on it sitting here today, because it just came to my attention when the package got circulated a couple of days ago, and I spoke to you yesterday. And I'm sure you and I might. I mean, I'm at sea. Imagine what the councillors are at. I just. My sense is that if you think we could put this off for a month, and then we could have a more fulsome, you and I could talk, and the CAO, and perhaps advise council a little better about this issue, then hopefully we won't have an emergency in the next 30 days. So if we do adjourn this particular matter, do we have to adjourn the others as well, the three matters?
Not necessarily, but they all have to go to the province together. And the reason they all have to go to the province together is we're asking asking for a redesignation as a regional emergency management organization, and the bylaw and the IMSA define what that designation would be.
Is there a particular timing issue relating to this?
No.
No? Well, there's a suggestion from staff that perhaps we might adjourn this for 30 days. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councilor LeBlanc, sorry.
Your problem is with the word shall?
Yes.
What if you put shall/may? Because the holdup is up only on this section of the three, is what I hear from you?
Yeah, it's 8 and 9 here, yeah. Well, shall or may means may, I guess. It needs to be one or the other, I think. It does, yeah. Councilor Redden, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, excuse me. If our bylaw is not kind of the same as the other bylaws, does that also affect approvals when it goes to the province? Like if our bylaw...
So your question is, if our bylaw is different from the bylaws of the other municipalities, will that be a problem with the province? That's a good question. Ms. Campbell, do you know the answer to that?
They must match, and they must be submitted for approval by the minister at the same time. So any change that's made will have to be made by the other two municipal partners as well. They would have to be in agreement to it.
So I guess when we have the discussion, if we do feel it should reflect the statute, then we would have to talk to the other municipalities at the same time.
Right.
Good point.
Is there a status on the other municipalities?
The notification I've received thus far is that the only point for further discussion with the other municipal partners is the funding agreement contained in the intermunicipal service agreement. The other two municipalities have done first reading on the bylaw and have approved the letter to go forward to the minister.
So there's a motion on the floor. I believe that someone can make a motion to adjourn this issue to the next committee of the whole meeting if someone wishes to do that. Councilor Redden?
I'll make a motion.
So moved?
So moved, yeah.
And I heard a second. Was that Councilor? Oh, Deputy Warden, sorry. So there's a motion to adjourn this to the next committee of the whole so that we can have a more fulsome report on this issue. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. And I think that probably we should have a motion to adjourn the other two matters.
Right here, move to adjourn the other two matters until committee of the whole in December.
Is there a second for that? Councilor Hudson seconds. Is there discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. So that's items 5.1. That's 5.1, 2, and 3, is it, on the agenda? That's 5.1, 2, and 3. So we're on to new business. So, this is, there's 6.1 is the motion that was adjourned from last committee of the whole, and 6.2 is a new recommendation report that comes out of the Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee. Now, you'll all remember that both of these motions require a change in our policy. And the two draft policies on the two motions, the two issues, are in your package. So I've thought about this, and...
No, they're not.
Sorry?
No, they're not.
They're not?
Well, the first one indicates that it deals with 1.4 1.4.9.1,
What page are you on, Councilor Morrison?
30.
Page 30?
And the recommendation deals with 1491, but the policy that's attached is 135.
Medical Assistance Recruitment Program Policy.
It just didn't get renamed in the document.
Sorry?
This policy here
Yeah.
should say AM 1.4.9.1, not 1.3.5.
The clerk tells me that the numbering is wrong, but you can see that if you read under the
It
subject,
is
it's the same policy.
But on the second item, we have 1.4.9.1, which is different than the one we were just told should be 1.4.91.
Okay, let me just catch up to you here.
If I may, I think Councilor
Just hold on,
Morrison-
please. Just hold on. So, I guess what they are, they're both new policies. Okay, they're both new policies, and they're dealing with the same subject. All right, but I agree with you, Councilor Morrison, they're both new policies, so it's really not amendments to the same policy, they're both new policies. So, they're both new policies that deal with the same subject.
But they have different numbers.
Yeah.
And we were just told they should have the same number.
Well, I just rather not get caught up in the numbering. They talk about this, hear me out. They talk about the same issue. There was if I could just briefly summarize the motion that was adjourned to today, and that's on the floor, was a suggestion that we pay $10,000 to new doctors under certain conditions. The motion that the Physician Recruitment Committee has brought forward is a policy whereby if it is learned that a doctor is coming to our community, that would be reported to the Physician Recruitment Committee, who will then determine in their own minds what the appropriate way to assist the doctor might be, and that recommendation would come before Committee of Whole and then Council. So those are the two, roughly speaking, policies that are both on the agenda for today. They're dealing with the same subject. So in theory, we could deal with the one that was adjourned from last week and then deal with the one that's been brought forward today, or whatever. We could do it in the reverse. What I propose is that we have a discussion amongst council with respect to both at the same time. And after hearing councilors discuss and debate which way they prefer, hopefully maybe some consensus will come out and we'll know where we're going on this. But I think it's not fair to one side or the other to put one motion before council before the other without having a discussion on both. So that's the way I plan to deal with it. Yeah.
There's also, technically speaking, the motion that was made at October council was to adjourn a motion to approve something, and Committee of the Whole cannot pick up that motion. The motion that was adjourned to today from October council was to adjourn this item. The item that was before you at October council was 7-day notice had been given to approve the policy.
It was adjourned to this Committee of the Whole.
Yeah, but you're switching, you switched horses in the middle of the stream, so you can't adjourn a motion of council to be made at Committee of the Whole. You can't make
Well,
council's
that's what
motion
we did.
today.
That's what we did. So
But
I,
I'm telling you, you won't be able to do it today, because the motion that
Well-
was adjourned was to approve 7-day notice that had been given.
I intend to bring it forward today.
On a point of order, please.
Yeah.
I agree with your idea of a general discussion. but on page 32, there is an untruth. Page 32.
Is this a point of order, or is this a matter for discussion?
It's not a matter of discussion.
Okay, what is it?
Under background,
Yes?
the last sentence says, the Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee reviewed the policy and endorsed revisions as per the attached revised draft policy. That is not true.
I think you're correct on that. I agree with you.
And we ought not, the recommendation of the committee was changed somehow. I know not how or under what authority. So it follows that page 34 it is not the document that the committee recommended.
Sorry, 34 is... Just a minute now. Per the attached... So you're saying that the draft policy that's before us is not what was recommended by the committee?
That's
Page
right.
34, okay.
That's right. The
What
committee
happened?
recommended a policy, and somehow it got changed.
Yeah, I'll tell you how it got changed. No, I'll come to you. I looked at the draft policy, and the wording of the policy, it didn't make any sense to me. Grammatically, it was incorrect, it was confusing, and it was the notes that Ms. Campbell took from the meeting. So I said to her, this is confusing, it doesn't make sense. And I suggested other wording, and I said, please check with the chair of the committee, Councillor Prout. And as I understand it, Ms. Campbell then called Councillor Prout, the chair of the committee, and said that this wording reflects the intent of the meeting of the Physician Recruitment Committee, and Councillor Prout said that it did.
That's very plain. What should have followed next is a meeting of the committee, because the chair has no authority to change a report on his own. The chair of the committee has no authority to change the report, period.
Do you have some disagreement with the wording on it?
I have no disagreement with the substance, but this is the second time that this committee has been bypassed. Now, we either determine that the committee will function or we do away with it.
Councillor Prout?
Thank you. Councillor Morrison and I have had this discussion, and I think the issue is, and just background, you're aware of it, other councillors may not be. As our committee has said, we're very strong in support of what this policy will do. And last week, with a convolution of things that went on, including the internet being down for 3 days, and my schedule was busy, and I did get a call from the deputy CAO and Ms. Campbell, who we had a chat over that, and we were provided, or I was provided, I believe it was CC to the committee, what was struck and what was proposed. And as my email said, where are we here? I spoke and with Dawn and emailed back to her and CC'd the committee that I agree that the changes do not appear to be in conflict with what was discussed in the committee, and if anything, do provide clarification, and I thank her for her assistance. I think where the issue comes up with, as Councillor Morrison has said as well, I should have perhaps definitely talked, even held a meeting. But where the issue comes in today, I think, is the background on page 32 is incorrect. But the substance of what has come forward is correct and is acceptable to me, and I would hope the rest of the committee, we are in favor, or I am in favor of moving this forward, but I would just like it noted that the background there was incorrect. It had been revised, and that's not reflected in the background.
Yeah, well,
That's
Councillor
all.
Morrison has said he has no difficulty with the way it's worded. So he's happy with that. It does reflect the intention of the committee.
No, excuse me,
Okay, so I thought that's what you said, Councillor Morrison.
I
Really-
have no trouble with the wording, but the
Okay.
wording has no standing.
Okay,
It has no standing at all and ought not to be considered by this committee of the whole until it is agreed at a committee meeting. That's why we have a committee.
so are you suggesting you want this taken off the agenda?
I'm merely suggesting that interference in committee meeting reports is not warranted and ought not to be undertaken.
Where was the interference? I don't think there was any interference. What was drafted before was unintelligible.
So you took it upon yourself to change it.
I took it upon myself to clarify it. I didn't change it.
Well, you clarified it.
I
That's
clarified
good.
it. You just told me you're quite happy with the wording. It's much better than it was.
But it has no standing. Do we have a committee or do we not have a committee?
I want to proceed with the matters on the agenda, if you don't mind.
I'm
If you want, you've made your point, sir. Councillor Bartel?
Yeah, if I could, just for clarification, there's 3 pages related to this. There's an October 1st, 2021. There's a November 3rd, 2021, both recommendation reports. And there's the policy. Policy was mislabeled, its number was clear. But the recommendations that are on October 7th, notice the one on municipal council, and the one on November 3rd is that municipal council.
So I'm afraid I'm not following you. Can you,
Page 30 to 32,
30 to 32?
30, 31, and 32.
So this is the,
I just finished and you made it.
yeah, I'm just trying to catch up here. Just trying to catch up.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, there's these 3 pages.
Yeah,
One is to give recommendation to give 7-day notice. The other one is 2 pages later on page 32 is that municipal council approved medical assistance recruitment program. Then you have the policy, the recommendations for October and the one for November. The financial implications statement has been changed. And I have an issue with the one in November, which I can bring up later if we vote on this, because there's something that needs some clarification. And then you go back to our agenda. And the agenda motion is that 7-day notice be given for municipal council to approve medical assistance recruitment program, new as revised and recommended by the Physician Recruitment Committee. Now, I'm not sure why we had an October one that's recommended to give 7-day notice. The November one, which is recommending that council approve, and the policy, and there's and all of them that are inconsistent, and the actual motion that's to be read is different than what's on the recommendations. And there's only one motion, and there's 3 pages, 2 of them are recommendations. So I'm not sure exactly what we're voting on, where this is heading, and there's a lot of different inconsistencies related to this matter. And maybe it needs to be set aside and dealt with, brought back. And if I may, while I'm at it, maybe it's appropriate this recommendation. In the financial implications, it adds an item about moving, consider further allocations for 22-23. This is a policy. This isn't saying it should be, it's put, that makes it sound like it might terminate on the next year, which I think this policy was supposed to be for ongoing. So there's inconsistencies riddled through these pages.
Where do you get the idea that the policy would end after 1 year?
Where it says on page 32, on financial implications, strategic initiatives contains an allotment of $45,000 for current fiscal year with no expenditures to date. Municipal council could reallocate all or first portion of these monies for the purpose of efficient recruitment with consideration for a further allocation for recruitment in 22-23 budget. It doesn't say, it should say, if it's continuing, instead of saying in the 22-23 budget, it should say in continuing budget for continuing years.
Well, the policy on page 34 does say that the maximum funding available in this current fiscal year is $45,000. Maximum shall be established in subsequent years during the budget approval process.
Yeah, but in the recommendation report, which is the meat of where the recommendations come from, it does have that inconsistency built into it, which I think should be changed.
I see the deputy warden has his hand up. If you don't mind, I'd like to just, we could go on. We've wasted a lot of time on this already. Perhaps it's not wasted, wrong choice of words. But to me, there's one policy that suggests that we give $10,000 to a doctor that's coming to the community, and just roughly stated, and the other policy is that the physician recruitment committee has to first decide what to do. Those are the two options that I see. So, Deputy Warden, what would you like to say?
Thank you. Thank you. We've been discussing this for about 5 or 10 minutes now, and we still haven't put this item on the table.
Well,
We've discussed two different recommendations here. We've been going back and forth from two actually into the third, and we still haven't put anything on the table.
I know, and then that's because I think we need to discuss both at the same time because they address the same issue. It's not fair to one or the other to put it forward without discussion of the other, in my view. I would like to move to some discussion about whether we accept the policy where we pay $10,000 to a doctor, or where we accept the policy that it first has to go through the physician and recruitment committee. That's what I'd like to do.
Continuing from...
Well, no, I'd like someone else. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you as someone. I'd like to see if there's anybody else that would like to speak to the issue. Councillor Cotw.
Well, I don't disagree with what the recruitment committee's asking for the stuff to go back through them. We have a doctor that's presently trying to settle his family here and probably could use the $10,000. It's very costly for them to move from abroad to this community and to get situated and get everything in life that needs to be situated for them to continue living here. I would like to see if there's more work to be done on the wording of the policy. I would like to see that sent back to the recruitment committee to verify what they would like to have in their policy and deal with that at a later time. But I also would like to see council step up to the plate and award the $10,000 to the new doctor, which is trying to settle here. So I don't want to see that keep delayed. If the policy needs work on it, then we take our time and work on it. Send it back to the recruitment, make sure the recruitment gets exactly what they want to have in it, and put back. But I would like to see those two items separated and us be able to vote on supporting the doctor that's here.
I think I agree with that. My difficulty is that they're both policies they conflict with each other. So if you pass the $10,000 and have that as a policy, and then it goes to physician and recruitment, and that's a policy, you got two policies that don't agree.
I would say that we don't pass the $10,000 under the policy. We pass the $10,000 as a grant to the soldiers, or that recruitment committee out of that East End, and send this back to our own recruitment committee and come back with the proper wording they'd like to have approved.
And how do we proceed with the $10,000 today then without it being part of a policy? I'm looking for help because I think we all want to do the same thing.
This is right.
Councilor Cotw?
Thank you. As I stated at the start, we don't want to do anything to hold this up. I don't think that's certainly not the role of the committee. I would move that we go ahead and approve what's on page 34. And out of that, we could start with, as soon as we got the recommendation from Soldiers Memorial Hospital for the particular position, we could consider that and bring it forward to
So
for
if
the
we
funds.
approve the policy that things go through the committee, then the committee would meet and they would report back to the next committee of the whole with a recommendation. And it's quite possible that you could recommend something like the $10,000. So that would hold matters up for a month. I'm easy either way. I think, the irony of this whole discussion is
We all want the
I
best
think
thing.
we all want the same thing.
Yeah.
I think we all would like to give $10,000 to this doctor, and we're quite happy to have everything go through the physician and recruitment committee. We're just kind of caught up in technicalities. So I'm suggesting then that probably that's the best way to go. I get the sense that the committee is probably going to recommend some assistance to this doctor. So
Through the
then I think what we'll do is I guess we have to go through the agenda, and we could have what I'd like to do is put the second motion first, which is the one about matters go through the physician and recruitment committee. But I think, according to the clerk, I then need a motion to change the order of the day.
So the first item cannot be addressed at today's meeting
Okay, well,
because you cannot move a council motion to be made at committee of the whole.
Right. Correct.
okay.
And you don't even have to make the suggested motions that are in front of you. Council is free to make any motion they wish to make.
Okay. So, having heard from the clerk, I think what I'll do is I'll accept a motion on the floor that relates to the policy that comes through the committee, which is on page 32 of 39, if I have it correct. Yeah. Yes, Councilor Sheridan?
So is it possible to have a one-time grant, a motion passed for a grant per position, and then in the future having all others go through the recruitment committee? This is all new for everyone, right?
Look, I think everybody wants to do that. Later on in the day, we're going to have a discussion on governance as to whether council can violate its own policy. And you're suggesting that we just pass a motion to pay $10,000 to this doctor. Can we just do that?
For a grant,
For a grant. Can we pull it out of the air? Because it's, according to the clerk, it's not technically before us. Can we just here today say we want to do
You
it?
have nothing before you right now that you're discussing.
Yeah. So
You really should have a motion to be discussing it.
Well, just let me ask you this question. And if there was a motion on the floor to pay $10,000 to this doctor,
To the hospital.
To the hospital, sorry. Thank you. Would it be out of order to entertain the motion?
No.
Okay. So,
Because the matter is what is on the agenda.
so, I think we're getting somewhere. I'm just trying to think of which one to put first. Maybe we suggest the motion with respect to the $10,000 to the Soldiers Memorial Hospital. Just, so do we need a change to the order today? Because it's technically not on the agenda.
It's under the matter that's being discussed. It's under position.
So you
It is
think
not out of
it's
order.
inappropriate, and then we can,
And then you can send the policy.
then we can do the policy one afterwards?
Yeah. Please.
So then I will entertain a motion from Councillor Sheridan.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the $10,000 grant from Strategic Initiatives
To recommend to council?
to recommend to council,
Yeah.
sorry,
Okay, that we paid the $10,000 to the
to Soldiers Memorial Hospital Foundation.
foundation. Is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Morrison seconds. Is there discussion on that motion? Councillor Bartow.
Can we amend that so to be applied to this $45,000 policy when it goes through, so that it's not in addition to that?
There's no policy to apply it.
There's no policy at the moment.
The intent is
No policy.
approving- Excuse me. The intent is approving additional funds over and above what we're discussing in this.
The motion on the floor is to pay $10,000 to the hospital for the purpose of assisting this doctor. And then, if that passes, then the next motion on the floor will be for any future assistance to any other doctors, or even maybe to this doctor, will be up to the Physician and Recruitment Committee. That's the way I see it.
And it states that it's coming from the strategic.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're clear.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor?
Order of the day edition before we do that motion.
I've checked with the clerk and she says we don't, because it's
You're
a
all
matter.
having discussion on this matter. This matter is what is on the agenda.
Okay.
Councillor Redmond.
But I didn't think we could direct where the money went beyond to, like, we can say it's going to Soldiers Memorial, but I didn't think we could tell them what they're
Right,
doing.
and you're absolutely right, and the motion didn't say that. The motion on the floor just said to the hospital foundation.
There's lots of words there, I wanted to make sure it wasn't in that.
Yeah, you're right.
So what's the motion now?
Seeing no other hands up, I'll call for,
Could we read the motion?
Would you like me to read the motion?
Yes.
It was moved by Councillor Sheridan. Oh, thank you for letting me read. Councillor Sheridan, seconded by
Can't hear a word.
You can't hear a word. Okay, let me see if
I can now.
Okay. Was moved by Councillor Sheridan, seconded by Councillor Morrison, to recommend that municipal council pay a one-time grant of $10,000 from Strategic Initiatives to the Soldiers Memorial Hospital Foundation.
See,
Okay,
that part's not in there for the doctors.
I'll call for a vote. Councillor Bartow?
Just one question. Should that not be earmarked to say for physician improvement?
We're not allowed to tell them what to do with
We're
their
not allowed
money.
to do that?
We can't tell them others.
To be understanding, that would be
So that was our intention.
Yeah, we can talk to them what our preference is, but they make the decision.
I'm talking to the chair.
Yeah.
True.
If we, I know we can't infer that, but maybe we can clarify that in a covering letter. I suppose. I don't know. You know, it's a grant to them, and the only reason we're doing it is for the physician recruitment, but we're giving it to them and they use it for anything.
We can express our preference.
I just want some clarification.
I'm trying to clarify it for you, Councillor Bartow. We can express our preference, but we can't tell them what to do with it.
No, I didn't
But we
say.
can express our preference.
Yeah.
I'm ready to call for the vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to the motion that's on page 32, if I have it straight, yeah, page 32 of 99. There's a recommendation there with respect to a policy. Deputy Warden?
Yes, sir. Recommendation that municipal council approve AM-1.4.9.1 medical assistance recruitment program policy, new policy, as revised and recommended by the Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councilor LeBlanc seconds. The clerk has her hand up.
Yeah, the wording should have been that 7-day notice be given for municipal council to approve.
Is that all right with the mover and seconder?
Fine, yeah.
And who seconded it? Councilor Morrison?
Councilor LeBlanc?
LeBlanc, yeah. Councilor LeBlanc, are you all right with that change?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Morrison.
Thank you. I would like to amend the motion and delete all words after the word revise. And my reasoning is that new policy was not recommended by the Physical Recruitment and Retention Committee.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councilor Redden seconds it. So we don't have, if we take that out, we don't have the previous draft available to discuss.
No. May I?
Well, am I correct? We don't have, the council doesn't have the new policy, I guess, before.
It's on page 34.
Oh,
It's attached to that recommendation.
Yes, for an answer.
okay, well then I misunderstood your amendment.
If my amendment passes, the motion will read that municipal council approve AM 1491 medical assistance recruitment program policy, new policy as revised.
Okay, I was curious why you don't want the words recommended by the physician.
Because it was not the physician recruitment and retention committee process was hijacked.
I see. So you have no difficulty with the wording of the policy?
Never,
Okay.
never. It's just that
All right.
something happened.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Councilor Cotw?
If we're gonna amend it, we should be taking 10,000 off that 45,000.
We're not amending the policy, we're just amending the wording of the motion. But Councilor Morrison's happy with the wording of the policy. So yeah, that's a separate issue. The motion is only to remove the words as recommended by the Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee because in his view, it's not word for word what the committee recommended. Okay, so Councilor LeBlanc?
Well, I have a question. In all that, there's going to be the 7-day.
7-day notice for council, yes.
Okay. Why is it that how come, I'm confused. After new policy, we're removing as revised and keeping recommended by the physician?
No, we're just removing and the words that follow.
Say it again?
We're moving the words after the word revised.
As revised.
Any other questions? Any other discussion
I don't know why we're removing the bottom part.
on the amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Back to the main motion, which addresses the new policy. Councilor Cotw?
I think we've taken 10,000 on the previous motion out of the funds for this year. That should only save 35,000. Because we only had 45,000 in that economic development.
That just says the maximum.
Okay.
Well, you'd like to you'd like to change the 45 to 35. I would think that it's understood that the 10,000 would come out of the 45 myself, because there's no other place for it to come. Yeah. Any other comments? Councillor Redden?
I'm kind of in line with Councillor Connell, because it doesn't say the 45 is from strategic initiatives, which is the funding cost center that the 45 is coming from. And that cost center only has 35 in it now. Sorry, pending our 10,000 we've sent away. I mean, I'm fine with it saying 45 or whatever number we want to put there. I'm also, I don't know why we're putting our current year's funding in our policy. Like that line of the policy will be irrelevant in 5 months. Why is it? We should strike the whole line. I think it's probably more the more prudent aspect of it. We know from the preamble to our policy that it's being funded out of the Strategic Initiatives Cost Center. So I guess I'd move an amendment to strike all of Section 3.
Is there a seconder to that amendment? Councillor Longmire seconds. Discussion. Councillor Bartel?
We're striking what?
Section 3 of the policy.
From the criteria.
And the criteria.
Page 34.
34.
So then we're leaving it with no,
Sorry?
that leaves us with no limit. Excuse me.
Well-
No limit. So we're taking the maximum 45 off and then having no limit? The intent of the policy was to set a maximum of 45, and we could spend up to that. If we take that out of there, the policy doesn't have any parameters. You know, what's wrong with leaving the maximum 45? It doesn't mean that we have to spend it. And we're under the understanding that the 10,000 that was in the previous motion comes out of that. Why would we strike the maximum out of there and leave it wide open?
Anybody else, any comments? Councillor Cotw?
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Bartow, and I think that's best left in there. I know it's understood, but let's leave that there because that gives us clarity of purpose in my mind.
So
I think by striking it, I would be against that.
you'd be against the amendment.
Go.
As well.
Councillor Sheridan?
I'd also be against the amendment. It does say maximum funding, and it also says they'll be established in subsequent years, so I'd be against the amendment.
Okay, Councillor LeBlanc?
I would be in favor of keeping it there, so I'd be against the amendment. Sorry.
Anybody else?
I'm happy to withdraw.
Can you hear all right? No. Try to speak up, everybody.
May I interject here one moment? May I interject a point of order?
Point of order. Yes.
Thank you. I can hear probably what you can't in that room, but I can hear somebody in that room snorting and snotting and everything else that's going on, and I query if somebody in that room is ill, and if they're ill, I don't care if they got shots or not. What are they doing in that room? Thank you.
I don't hear it, Deputy Warden.
I can hear it as clear as day over this where I am here.
Yeah.
Somebody's snorting theirs. Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc, who was next?
Not me.
Councillor Redden, do you want to close the discussion?
I was going to withdraw my amendment.
Oh, withdraw the amendment. And Councillor Longmire, you agree? Okay.
That closes it.
So we're back to the policy as drafted and presented. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. It's 10 o'clock. We'll probably take a break around 10:30. So we've done 6.2,
Page 35.
6.3,
Yeah, page 35.
35, page 35 of 99 regarding the information technology policy. There's a recommendation. Deputy Warden, would you like to read that?
Yes, sir. That municipal council amend AM-7.2.1 information technology policy as circular.
That should be 7-day notice.
7-day notice, is that right? Deputy Warden, 7-day notice?
Yes.
Thank you.
It doesn't say that on the,
Yeah, but you incorporate that in your motion?
yes.
Second?
That 7-day notice.
Second, Councillor Connell seconds. Discussion? Councillor Redden.
I thought you were still looking for a second.
Pardon me?
I thought you were still looking for a second.
Councilor Connell, second.
Councillor Connell seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion opposed. Are you opposed?
Just point of order.
So just let me record the vote then.
Okay.
The motion's passed. Sorry, point of order.
I think the Deputy Warden is reading off of the meat of the policies, whereas in recommendations on the agenda don't mirror them exactly, and that's why it was missed, that it was the 7-day notice. So I think if we could refer to those motions, then it will clarify that, because that's not the first time that that's happened in this meeting. So.
Okay, next is the recommendation, 6.4, recommendation report, committees of council policy amendment. And this is a long policy. The change is to introduce provisions regarding a CAO review committee that is on page 46 of the package. Deputy Warden, would you like to read the recommendation that's put before us?
Are you talking about page 46 or 39?
39, you read the recommendation on 39.
The recommendation, that 7-day notice be given for municipal council. Amend AM-1.3.5 committees of council policy by adding provisions for CAO review committee.
Is there a second for that? Councillor Hudson seconds. Discussion? Policy changes on page 46. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Councillor Redden.
When we first discussed this CAO review committee, there had been, we discussed provisions about protecting the minutes of these in-camera sections from staff, because the deputy CAO, or deputy warden, sorry, is supposed to be the note taker, and then those notes are going to be confidential. There's nothing here about that, which I guess is really kind of a procedural thing, but it's also easy to have procedural stuff disappear if it's not in your policy. And I really think it's quite important and integral to the position of the CAO that information be protected diligently.
Yeah, this issue about, you're talking about the custody of the notes? Is that your issue?
Yes, that was my discussion.
You're right. The earlier draft did talk about the deputy warden being the custodian of the notes to ensure that staff wouldn't be able to go in and look at them. I had a discussion with staff in this regard, and they made it clear to me that these notes would be kept in a sealed envelope in the personnel file with probably in some kind of sticky over top of the sealed envelope such that it would be abundantly clear if anybody ever attempted to get into them. And on that basis, staff recommended that the notes be kept in the personnel file of the CAO sealed. So that's why that changed. That's why that's not there.
Yeah, I'd had a similar conversation with the clerk about procedures that would allow for the integrity of the notes. It's not procedural that I'm so concerned about. There's also provisions in this same policy about how minutes are kept and stored. And I didn't look to see if they were, how that all lines up exactly, but it may be something we just want to have in our head, that's all.
For when committees don't keep minutes, committees keep notes.
Oh, correct.
Minutes are covered under the records retention manual. Notes are not.
Any further discussion on the draft policy? Councillor Bartel.
As previously mentioned, and I guess I had a chance to dwell on a little bit more, is especially after I read it in all typed up, is I had a little bit of a problem with the number on the committee. I think that stating with the warden and the deputy warden, I guess that's fine, but then a gender sympathetic to the third position, that automatically makes it non-democratic, and it cuts 6 councillors out of that process of possibility. I'm not saying any of those 6 would want the position, but I think in generality, in a policy, we should not be negating the possibility. And when the recruitment committee was put together, there was the ladies and the men, and there was a name drawn out of each. That way we had our gender neutral or whatever to serve on the committee. And I think that we should be going down that road again. I don't think that we should be saying, okay, we're stating 2 councillors, which is the warden and deputy warden, are automatically there, and only one other, and it has to be a lady. I have problems with that. And it depends on how you want to look at it. If you're saying, oh yeah, well that means it's an uneven vote. There'll be 4 members. Well, there's other policy in it as well as whether the warden needs to have a vote or not as well, but the warden on any committee is ex officio and can be on there, but ex officio means that they don't have to vote, but they're there to give commentary and discussion. Is that a way that we can look at it to solve that problem, or do we add add another councillor on there and pull in 2 hats, and then we haven't eliminated the possibility of 6 councillors from having the opportunity to serve on that committee. And I think it's a valid point.
Anybody else? Councillor LeBlanc?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had the same feeling, because you have both warden and deputy warden in that position, and you're leaving quite a few members out. So either it should not just be 3, maybe it should be 5. Just putting it out there, because then it's certainly, and it can't be more than 5. And he did bring up the fact that the warden is ex officio on any committee, so that could be another way of doing it as well, except for the vote. It just,
Well, the way this
for
is
thought.
drafted, the warden would have a vote because he's on the committee, he's not attending ex officio.
I hear that.
Any other comments? Any other comments?
I think we need to, if that's the
Hold
problem.
on, I haven't quite recognized you yet. The deputy warden.
Thank you. Yes, I got to agree with Councillor Pardo that there should be more than just 3, because that's kind of not quite balanced enough. I think that 5 would be better. It brings in more of the council and gives a chance for better oversight. Thank you.
So if it's 5, do you then not have a gender issue? You just take the warden, the deputy warden, and 3 others? Is that what's being proposed?
No, I don't think
Councilor
that.
LeBlanc?
I don't think that's what's proposed. I think there should be one lady on the committee, that it's 3 or 5. It should be 5, but, and then that way it would cover all bases.
There's not an amendment on the floor at the moment,
You should amend that.
but unless someone wants to make an amendment, the motion on the floor is with respect to this policy.
Before it goes to a vote, I would like to, if I'm recognized.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's a concern on numerous councilors' minds right now, and it would not be prudent to ignore it and move ahead without modifying or amending. So by adding 5, that would solve it, but that's a maximum. Anything more than that gets a little messy. But I think we need to amend the process to rectify the balance. So I would make a motion that we strike the third. I have to read through the whole thing. Okay. On page
46 is it for?
one other. So if we just took line 44 on page 46, and where it says the CRO committee consists of the ward, deputy ward, and 1 other councilman, we change that 1 to 3. And then 46, we'd have to maybe we could have some discussion on it, but we could remove that. We could, just get rid of the 3rd committee member to extend it. Yeah. I guess we would leave committee members should reflect the gender diversity. Yeah.
So tell me what you're doing again?
Yeah, just,
Well, where'd you get so far?
I got adding to item 44 to include 3 other council members. Or to change it from 1 to 3 other councilors.
Okay, so change the 1 to 3. And on item 46, we could just remove selection of the 3rd member. We could say selection of the remaining members. The remaining committee members. Just take the word 3rd in and put remaining. And then that would leave the gender diversity in there.
so you're saying the second sentence in 46 would be the other committee members shall be selected by placing the names of councillors confirming an interest in a box and having 3 names being drawn by a person chosen by the warden. Is that what you were wanting to do, Councillor Bartel?
Okay. I missed that one.
Accordingly, the other committee members shall be selected by placing the names of councillors, confirming an interest in a box, and having 3 names being drawn by a person chosen by the warden.
It says on here, 3 names being chosen by a person chosen by the warden. That's not by the warden. They have another step involved.
It'd probably be the clerk. They could choose, apparently. I didn't,
Yeah.
So is item 46 removing 3rd committee member and replacing it with remaining committee members? in both places?
Yeah. Because we've already changed, 44 said 3, so the rest of them remaining would cover that. And can we change, would it be, instead of having the warden choose a person to draw, could we say the clerk? And because then it's not a counselor that's involved with that draw.
The person chosen by the warden, what if the clerk's not there that day?
I think that's a separate amendment. Some people may like one part of what you're doing and not the other. You're changing
Okay,
1 to 3.
Okay, no,
And if you want to change that, maybe that would be another amendment.
yeah. So it's just changing it from 1 to 3, and it's changing,
Third committee member.
It's changing 1 to 3, and on line item 4, it's changing third to remaining, and further on that paragraph in 46, the 1 to remaining. So it's changing 3 words.
You lost me now because I thought I had it.
Did you say remaining?
In item,
Can you read what we've got so
So-
far?
what I have is a mover to amend the policy by adding to item 44, or by amending item 44 to change 1 to 3 other council members. And in item 46, remove third committee member and replace with remaining committee members in both places.
Yep.
And both places.
Further in that paragraph, at the bottom of that paragraph, it says, in a box having one name, that one name should be changed to the remaining.
Having 3 names, okay.
3 names. I see it. We have to deal with this first. Okay, is there a seconder for that?
No.
Councilor LeBlanc, you're seconding that amendment?
Sure, so we can discuss it.
Okay, discussion on the amendment. Councilor Longmire.
So I go back to 46, to the extent practicable, selection of the third committee member should reflect gender diversity. What happens if in the event, as you're drawing names, you draw all male representatives? We've not shown any diversity, so
We have 2
then
votes.
we've got a process issue with what do you do? Put that name back in and redraw. So just wanted to point that out.
So, what does that mean with respect to your view on the amendment?
I wouldn't be in favor of the amendment, just moving through, just accepting who we draw unless we did show some diversity.
Okay. Councilor Crouch?
Thank you. I was thinking the same thing as Councillor Longmire has mentioned. It was the simplest way to do it, although the numbers still skew. Put female names in one bucket, male in the other. Pick one from each, dump the remaining names together, and pick the third person
Correct.
from there. The numbers are still skewed, but I don't think, we're all on a lot of committees, I don't think we're all going to be lining up to be on this one. Would that be an acceptable thought?
Well, we have an amendment on the floor. We have to deal with the amendment on the floor. So I take it that you would be voting against the amendment that's on the floor.
Unless I were to offer an amendment to the amendment. I don't know if that would have to be agreed by the mover, so I will vote against this and I'll continue with my thoughts on the other.
The amendment leaves in should reflect gender diversity.
Exactly.
It leaves it in. That's still there.
Yeah.
I guess I just think about the process. It doesn't identify a process.
Well,
Well, that would be simple.
I'll be voting against the amendment because I think that this is going to be a sensitive discussion between the CAO Review Committee and the CAO. And I just think it's going to be a lot easier for the CAO and for the committee to have the CAO and 3 people instead of 5 people. It's a different dynamic with 5 people. It's not as intimate. It would be more difficult, I think, to have a good discussion with 5 people than 3. So for that reason, I'll be voting against the amendment. Councillor Sheridan?
I agree with you. I like to keep things simple, and this is kind of muddying the water. There seems to be a lot of things going on. So the other committees that we're serving on aren't gender paired. So why don't we just throw everybody's name in a hat, pick one other person? Does it have to be male or female, or can everybody's name go in a hat and just pick one out and keep it simple?
This arose, there was a discussion about this at the last, I forget whether it was council or committee of the whole, and there was this suggestion was, it wasn't a motion, it was suggested to staff that this be included. That's where it came from. So I understand your point. The amendment on the floor, apart from the wording, is to have 5 people on the committee instead of 3. Further discussion on the amendment? We'll come back to you. It's your amendment. Is your hand up, Councillor LeBlanc?
No, it's not. However, I could speak. I know we might be muddying the waters, as it was said. However, I think that it's important to know that you want to keep it simple. So maybe 4 is better than 5, and then you pick 1 male, 1 female, add it to the pot. However, the bottom line is, I think it's important also to have not only a male perspective, but you have to have that female's perspective no matter what.
Any other comments on the motion on the floor? Councillor Bartow, did you want to close the discussion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Redden.
Call me old-fashioned, but I like to point out that it's not exactly binary, this question. You're talking about hats, male and female. There's they. There is so much more. I am quite against this amendment. I was very happy when I read this policy to see the phrasing that was there. I thought it was very well thought out, and that it's quite future-proof. It's forward-looking. It touches on subtly many things that this council's already involved with, which is accessibility and inclusivity and things like this. From all our perspective and discussion, I think that's important, even though it doesn't directly speak to the amendment. But I think part of why I was there, like the warden said, was for perspectives in that intimate setting. And I think that's really important, and that intimate setting should be a minimum number of people, which I think is 3. I think that's a good number.
Okay, Councillor Bartow to close the discussion.
My original thought on this was because we're not giving 6 councillors, more than half the council, the opportunity to be included on this committee. I think that's paramount. If into adding it from 1 extra to 3 extra was a step to maybe to avoid that. I'm not necessarily in favor of having too large a committee either, but it's hard to make a motion or amendment to a motion with 2 prongs. I would prefer to say, but I had opposition to that last time we had this discussion, was to say the warden plus 2 councillors. We can have ladies and men's hats, same as we did when we put the selection committee together. It doesn't have to be the deputy warden, because putting the warden, deputy warden on there, it negates 9 other councillors immediately. By putting the gender sympathetic aspect in there, it kills 6 counselors from having the opportunity. And this is a policy going on forever, and I don't think it's right to do it. So if I'd like at this point to amend my
Just withdraw.
But I want to bring this up because I think everybody can see where I'm coming from on it. To solve the problem, it's a problem the way it's written, and I'll be voting against it.
You'd be
Now,
voting in favor of the amendment. Right now, the amendment is on the floor, which you moved.
Which I moved. I'm talking.
But we're only talking about the
Okay, we're only talking about
the amendment.
It needs an amendment.
The amendment needs an amendment. Is that
But
what
the
you're saying?
amendment needs amendment, and
Well, there's an
it seems
amendment
a
on
little
the floor.
silly for me to amend my own amendment.
Yeah, I think, okay, I think we get your point, and I'd like to bring this to a close, if you don't mind, Councilor Bartow. You've spoken a couple of times on it.
And if this fails, then there'll be another amendment coming in.
Okay, there's an amendment on the floor, and it's moving the one other person on the committee to 3 others to make the committee 4 people instead of 3, making it 5 people instead of 3. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hands. I guess I'll have a show of hands. 1, 2.
To move from 3 to 5.
To move from 3 to 5.
I would
3. So there's 3 in favor, against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Count the deputy warden. Did you vote? Show of hands. For or against the amendment?
I was for the
For the
amendment.
amendment. Okay. It fails. It fails 7 to 4. So we're back to the motion on the floor, which is the CAO Review Committee as drafted in the policy. Councilor Bartow?
I'd like to make another amendment,
Okay.
and, excuse me, that amendment would be slightly different than the first one, which I might be more in favor of myself, but is to remove the deputy warden and add 2 board councilors. You have a total of 3, but you have a chance for everybody to get on. You can draw on the ladies who won hat and the guys who won hat, and everybody has the opportunity to serve on that committee. So I'm not sure where we would do that. We would take the 1 and change it to 3, and the 1 to 2 in 46.
Start at the beginning.
So, line item 44 on page 46.
Yes.
Remove deputy warden. And take out 1 and add 2 other council members.
Okay.
Members plural. And
No, that would be, you'd have to have 3.
Yeah, but it's the warden plus 2.
Yeah, but how many people do you want on the committee?
3 total.
Oh, just 3? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So it'd be warden and 2 council members.
Hold on.
I'm still talking. No, hold on. Can I continue, Richard?
Yeah.
To extend the selection of the remaining, change the 3rd to the remaining committee members, plural, should reflect gender diversity. And then at the end of the paragraph, same as before, where we change that 1 to 3, we'll change that 1 to 2. That'll make a total of 3 on the committee.
So it would read, accordingly, the remaining committee members shall be selected by placing the names of councillors confirming an interest in a box and having 2 names being drawn by a person chosen by the board. Right?
Yeah.
seconder for that motion? Councillor Connell seconds it. Discussion. Deputy Warden? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. Now, why is the Soba Council bent on not having me on the CAO review committee? Because, it was my idea to come up with the CAO review committee before Mr. Decker even joined us, a long time ago. Actually, even in the old administration, which never got any traction. So now, because we're trying to be politically correct, which we should, and have both gender diversification on this. But now we want just counselors, not the deputy warden. And why the warden, if that case? Although he's on there ex officio anyway, he's on there because it's a committee of council. Right? So why are you trying to shuffle me off there? And that's the way I feel about this, is that council's trying to ditch me off the CAO. Thank you.
Other comments on the amendment? I will be voting against the amendment. The reason that the deputy warden, to me, is on there is that at one point early on in the existence of this committee, we had a vote for deputy warden, and the council members put their trust in this case, Councillor Gunn as the deputy warden. So to me, to have the warden and the deputy warden on the committee are two people that council have shown some trust. This is not in any way an attempt to keep or not keep Councillor Gunn as a person on the committee. It's not directed at him, it's just directed at the office. That to me, it's good to have people that have already been shown some trust in them, and that's why I agree with the wording that's drafted. Any other discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
So having said that, CAO's committee is popular. Real popular. Spent a lot of time on this. I'm getting the feeling that it's not, you want 3 and Councillor Bartow wants equality. So there's only one thing left. It was not to remove the deputy warden from what I could see. It was to be able to have a chance to be on the committee. So what? Just do 2.
Yeah.
So then you'll be 4. Take the 2 of you, the warden, deputy warden, and
I think the amendment is to have a total of 3.
It is total of 3. However, then you remove. It's the removal of, and I understand your comment. Your comment is vital to the fact that we have 2 that work with the CAO all the time. Maybe you want one of them out. The point being is, it certainly is not showing, your point was, okay, the council made a choice to pick the 2 of you to represent, and we should be competent. That has, yes, true. However, when it comes to a committee, if there are certain numbers who wish to try to get on that committee, then it puts a lot of people out. So.
Fair comment. Councillor Connell?
Well, I think that you put the deputy warden's position, nothing to do with Councillor Gunn, deputy warden Gunn. You put his position in an ex officio position. He's not. He's elected, or she is elected, to represent this council when you're not available, or things that you ask them to do that you can't do. It's got nothing to do with being on a committee. Because all of a sudden, every committee we have, you're saying all of a sudden the deputy warden should be on it. No. The deputy warden's position is to support you and this council when you're not available. So to make it that he should be on this committee is putting all the other committees into the fact of why isn't he on them committees? You're the only one that's ex officio.
I'm not, two things about your comment, if I could respond. This committee, I don't think is going to be voting. This committee is taking the comments from council to the CAO and having a discussion and reporting back. I don't think that it's actually going to vote on it.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is that you're putting a deputy warden's position.
But I was responding to your ex officio issue, so there's no difference in this committee between officio and ex officio because there's no voting. Ex officio, you don't vote.
Well, then I agree with the four. Then why not go with it? If you think the deputy warden should be on this committee, this is putting a counselor, which Mr. Gunn is a counselor, on this committee without the rest of us agreeing that should.
I absolutely understand your point.
It's got nothing to do with.
I know. I understand. I completely understand. And I don't necessarily disagree. My view was that these are two counselors that council has already expressed some trust in. That's all. I take your point. Councillor Hudson.
Yes, just to make a quick point. I will vote against the amendment. I'll say that firstly. If you look at somebody that's going to review somebody's position, I would think that perhaps the people that work the closest to that individual are the best to judge their performance. And my own opinion is that those two individuals that are closest to the CAO are the warden and the deputy warden. And to me, they are the best people to to sit on that committee. That's just my feeling anyway.
Any other comments on the amendment that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Deputy Warden? Yeah, and to close the discussion, if we could.
Just to close the discussion real quick here. Thank you. I don't know if I've ever met with Mr. Dick, through you, Warden, more than once in his office when he first came here. Any conversations I've ever had with Mr. Dick or any dealing with him has been across the internet or through our web service. I don't know if council, I'm getting the impression that some council are thinking that we're chummy or something, Mr. Dick and I. And we're not, believe me. We're not chums. I only deal with Mr. Dick through the email server. Thank you.
Okay, that was to close the discussion. I'm going to call for the vote. No, I'm going to call for the vote.
I get to wrap up?
No, I'm going to call for the vote.
I would like to make a statement.
No.
Point of order.
No. Councillor Bartow, you've spoken on this matter a number of times. It's getting late in the day.
I've been accused of something that I'd like to respond to.
Now, you haven't been accused of anything.
Well,
Listen, I'm sorry, but I have to control order in this meeting, and
I'd like to have some order too.
I'm afraid that I'm going to call for a vote on the amendment.
Could you read the amendment?
Would you read the amendment, please?
It was moved by Councillor Bardo, seconded by Councillor Connell, to amend the policy by, in section 44, removing deputy warden and changing 1 to 2, and in Article 46 to change third to remaining members and change 1 to 2.
Okay, everybody understand? All those in favor of the amendment to the motion, to the policy, please say aye. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? Nay. And we should have a vote, I guess we'll have a vote of hands since there's... all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. and deputy warden makes 7. So the amendment fails 7-4. So we're back to the
Drawing board.
policy that's before you. Any discussion with respect to the policy that's before you?
I'll try one more time.
Go ahead, Councilor LeBlanc.
So if we change the 44 and just, instead of one other council, make it 2?
So you would keep the warden, the deputy warden, and
And
2
two.
others?
Yeah.
To make 4 instead of 3?
Yes.
Is that an amendment you wish to bring forward?
Yeah, let's try that one.
Is there a second to that amendment? Councilor Morrison seconds it. Discussion? And that the corresponding changes in section 46 as well. Councilor Prout?
Thank you. Just for point of clarification, are you suggesting, I'm sorry, hope you are, that those 2 be gender equality there?
Yes, it should
Yes.
do.
Okay, that was implied. I just wanted
Yes.
to make sure that that was part of it.
Further discussion on the amendment? Councilor Sheridan?
Just a comment, but if you're doing that, then it would have to be 2 females in the box, right? Because you have 2 males already, and then you'd be putting 2 females in the box.
Well, I guess I was thinking the 2 extras, one would be male, one would be female.
Okay.
Sorry for any confusion.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote, and it's, just to be clear, the review committee would be the warden, the deputy warden, and 2 other council members, and the appropriate changes to section 46. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
I agree.
Aye. Opposed? Motion, the amendment is carried 9-2. Oh, deputy warden, I didn't look, I'm sorry. How did you vote?
I was for the amendment.
For the amendment, okay, so 9-2, it passes. Okay. So we're,
Already.
so I'm going to read the policy as amended, 44, as I understand it, and the clerk can correct me. The CAO Review Committee consists of the warden, the deputy warden, and 2 other council members. 46, the first sentence stays the same. Accordingly, remaining committee members shall be selected by placing the names of councilors confirming an interest in a box and having 2 names being drawn by a person chosen by the warden. Right? Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Councilor Bartow.
The gender issue isn't solved by that reading of it. You said pulling out 2 names of the same box. Is that, you want to read that one?
Councilor Redden?
It did have 46 reflect, I think, what was said in the first sentence. The 3rd committee member should probably say reflect remaining committee members.
Yes.
And to Councilor Sheridan's point,
Sorry, what was your first point again?
so in the first line where it says the 3rd committee member, that should probably also say the remaining committee member.
Right.
And to Councilor Sheridan's point of that then being 2 women and 2 men in this particular iteration of council, I don't think that's true, because if you take 3 of 11 and reduce it to a common fraction of 4, you end up with roughly 1/4. I don't think you're rounding up to a half. I might be off there a little bit, but
I don't know, I got your math there, I'm afraid.
3 of 11, is it closer to 1/4 or 1/2?
12 would be 1/3.
3 11ths is closer to 1/4 than it is to 1/2. So my point is, by reading it that way, you would still have 1 member who is, in this iteration of council, female, and the other 3 would be male.
necessarily.
That's how math works.
And the gender parity would come into play depending on who your warden and deputy warden
That
are.
would reflect the gender composition of council,
Yes.
yes.
Are you suggesting an amendment, or are you happy with that, the way it is then?
I am suggesting an interpretation of what the amendment was, because the amendment was that 46 shall reflect 44, and not that what was said in 44 with 4 members. There was no actual specification as to what 46 said in that amendment.
Okay. So you're happy with the way it's worded, and you assume that it can be handled administratively to reflect the gender diversity?
Not really, but okay.
Pardon me?
I said not really, but okay.
All right. Any other comments about the motion as amended? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on
So
the,
this is on your original 7-day notice.
the original 7-day notice
As amended.
and as amended. So we have 4 people now on the committee. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? I guess I'm the one person, 1 of 3. So it's 10 to 1. Passes. Well, it's taken quite some time. We should have a break. We'll come back at 11 o'clock. Welcome back, everybody. This is the continuation of the Committee of the Whole meeting. The next item, what we're going to do is change the order of the day, if we will. Our Director of Community Development, Mr. Dunphy, has to leave this afternoon, so there are a few matters on the agenda that we'd like to change the order of the day, and that is item 6.6, the recommendation report, Snow Lake Keep Lane, and 6.9, recommendation report 2021 Upper Clements Area, MPS and LUB review. Would someone like to move that we change the order of the day and just move those ahead to deal with them first? Councilor LeBlanc moves, seconded by Councilor Longmire. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. So we'll move to the recommendation of report for Snowkeep Lane, which is on page 52 of 99. Deputy Warden, would you like to read that recommendation?
Yes, sir. Recommendation. Recommend that municipal council approve the road name Snow Lake Keep Lane for a private access road at the Snow Lake Keep homesteading community in Arlington West.
Is there a second for that? Councilor Longmire seconds. Discussion? This has come before council a few times in the process. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is 6.9. 6.9, which is on page 65. And there's a recommendation that, Deputy Warden, if you would read the recommendation.
That's a recommendation that municipal council recommends a review of the Upper Clements Area municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw and adopt a public participation program that would refer the review applications to the Upper Clements Area Advisory Committee and the Annapolis County Planning Advisory Committee for their review and recommendation along with the applicable public meetings and advertisements.
Is there a second for that? Councilor Morrison? Discussion? I'll just make a short comment. There is a plan, an intent that we will be having, I think Mr. Dunphy told me, 22 different meetings throughout the county with respect to our overall amendment of the county-wide plan. And I discussed with Mr. Dunphy whether we could basically kill two birds with one stone and have the review of the Upper Clements area done at the same time that we have the public meetings with respect to the overall plan. He advises that for various reasons I won't bother getting into, that that's not possible or appropriate. So we have to go ahead with this itself, and the county-wide planning process will be something separate. So having said that, any other further comments, Deputy Warden?
Thank you. Will these public meetings be open to all members of the public?
I would assume so.
No, that's not my answer. Even though without vaccinating certificates and that, you're going to answer me that question. Will these public meetings be open to the public even though you don't have a certificate of vaccination?
I would turn that question to the CAO, but I don't see him here.
There you go.
I'm afraid I'm not going to venture a response at this time. I don't.
have to review the provincial protocol.
The clerk says we'd have to review the provincial protocols on that. I'm afraid. I'm sorry, I can't respond. I don't know where Mr. Dick is.
All right.
Any other questions or comments with respect to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Mr. Dunphy, was there anything else that you'd like us to deal with before you have to go?
Just one quick one, Warden. If I can introduce our two new planners. You met Brenda Lang at the last community call, and this also is Victoria Hamilton, if they want to have a quick call.
Well, welcome to you both.
Welcome.
Okay, then we're back to, let's see, we're back to item 6.5, recommendation report, Margarettsville and District Volunteer Fire Department release of funds,
25.
which is page 48.
8. That was wrong.
Recommendation.
Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you. Recommendation to recommend that municipal council authorize the withdrawal of $25,000 from the Capital Fire Services Reserve Fund to the Margarettsville and District Volunteer Fire Department in the 2021-2022 fiscal year.
Is there a second for that? Councillor Connell seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. So we've dealt with 6.6.
55.
So now we're at 6.7, Community Grants Policy Amendment. Now, that begins on page 55. This could take the rest of the day. I counted 44 changes if you take the deletions and the additions. My first thought was that it would be helpful to council, when I saw this a few days ago, it would be helpful to council to have, after each suggested change, the rationale for the change, so that we could look at it at home and come armed more with an understanding of what was intended to accomplish on each one. I did raise that with staff, and the bottom line was they wanted to proceed today. I'm still of the view that I'd like to see at the bottom of each change the reason for the change. That's still my view. If not, what we're going to have to do is take each change one by one. So starting with number 1, where we're adding certain changes, not for profit and things like that. So before we jump into this, I wonder if any counselor is of the same view that I am, that it would be helpful to have below each change the rationale for the change and deal with it next month, or whether you'd like to move ahead with it today. Councillor Longmire, what?
I agree.
Yeah. So you'd like to move this ahead for the committee of the whole in December with the rationale for each change under each change?
Yes, please.
Would you make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Second.
And it's seconded by the deputy warden. Is there any other discussion around the table? Sorry, Councillor Prowse.
I'm just, did staff give a reason as, would staff be overly burdened? I guess I know the end of the year is coming and December is going to be a hectic month. Would that, was there...
Is Ms. Chisholm here?
Yes.
Would that be possible for you to redo this with the rationale under each change? Would that be, do you have time to do that?
If you so wish, I'd be happy to answer any questions today, but whatever council prefers.
But the question is, if you put something underneath each change, just a short 2-sentence, the reason for the change, you could get that done in the next week or two?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I just didn't want to add to it.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Councillor Bartow?
If Nancy, Ms. Chisholm is willing to answer questions.
No, we're not. We're going. There's a motion on the floor to adjourn all this until next month with the reasons for the changes underlined. So
The comment is, what time is it going to change? We I've read through this and I thought it was fairly clear. How long would it take to answer those questions? Instead of putting it off and then taking more time next month.
well, you can vote against the motion to adjourn.
I'm just making my comments so everybody can hear the reasoning. Right?
Fair enough. Any other discussion on the motion to move this to December with some reasons? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? One opposed. Two. Were you opposing,
Yes.
Councillor Long? 9-2 to move it to December. Thank you. Yes.
If we have any questions or anything, we can send an email to Nancy and concern.
I wish Mr. Dick was here. I don't know whether the proper thing is for you to send them to Mr. Dick, copy with Ms. Chisholm. Let me put it this way. You should copy Mr. Dick if you're going to do that.
And probably her directors.
And the director, and Ms. Campbell as well, it's suggested that she's the director of this department. Okay?
So we're to send comments, or if we have any, or...
If you want some clarification in the
Okay.
meantime, you can contact, the idea is you can contact Ms. Chisholm, who's running it, but copy Mr. Dick and Ms. Campbell with your email comments.
Thank you.
Ms. Chisholm, did you want to say something?
Yes, if it's appropriate.
Sure.
It's relating to grants. I do have 2 grant applications currently in the queue on hold. I was hopeful as a staff person to address the issue now. And I was going to present the 2 new grant applications at next council because there's still funding remaining in the program. So I'm not sure how council would like me to proceed, hold off the 2 grant applications till December, January, and because I would base my recommendations on the policy as it currently exists.
Right now, the policy as it currently exists is what's in place.
Okay, so we'll still bring them forward
If they're under the
based on
current
our
policy.
recommendations on the
Yeah.
current policy and still discuss the possible changes at next council as well?
Right? That's the way I would see it, yeah. Okay, next is the occupational health and safety, 6.8, which is on page 61.
The recommendation.
Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Recommendation that in accordance with the recommendation of the Occupational Health and Safety Committee, 7-day notice be given for municipal council to re-adopt AN-2.7.1 Occupational Health and Safety Policy as circulated.
Is there a second for that? Councilor Hudson, second. Discussion? Councilor LeBlanc?
I had a question, hold on. I guess it says in here somewhere, if I don't find it, that it's reviewed every year. And I'm looking at the back, on page 64, it went from 2017 to 2019, so we missed a year? Is that correct? Is my question.
Oh, it could be a typo.
Well,
Is it?
that's what I was wondering. Because it says November 14, 2017, and November, no, that's council approval, 2017. So is it reviewed every year or every, well, no, 17, 19, and 20, 21.
Ms. Campbell?
Annual review, number 12.
It is subject to annual review and a year was missed.
And there was a missed year?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you,
Oh,
Councilor.
perfect, good.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Losing my voice. Next is the information report of October 2021 at 6.10.
You don't need a motion to receive it.
That's
That's
an update, 67.
We don't need a motion to receive?
No, it's circulated for information only, so no discussion or decision is required.
Right.
No motion is required to receive it.
But if people want to raise some issue, they can, right?
Sure.
Sure. So are there any questions, Deputy Warden?
I was just going to move to receive the report.
The clerk suggests we don't need such a motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. And I see it looks like our planning staff left along with Mr. Dunphy.
Yes. Of course. They're needed.
Yeah, so I don't know if there are questions. Maybe we may or may not be able to answer them, but any questions? It looks like there's still a lot of construction going on in the county, which is good news. Okay, so I don't see any further questions or comments, so we'll move along. 6.11 is the information report regarding outstanding actions, and that's actions the county council is to take. Any questions or comments? I take it that's the same. We don't need a motion for that. Any questions or comments with respect to that report? Which is on 6.1, it's 6.11 on page 71. Seeing none, I'll move along. Next is the 6.12, housing crisis in the county, letter to Minister Municipal Affairs and Housing, and Councillor Sheridan has kindly provided us with the background information here, and that's at page 73. of 99, 73, and 74. And was there a motion? There is a motion
No.
that's on our agenda.
The motion is on page 4.
Move to receive for information.
No, I think there's a Deputy Warden, I think there's a motion that's to be put on the floor by Councillor Sheridan here. Councillor Sheridan, would you like to put the motion on the floor?
That municipal council send a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the housing crisis in our municipality.
And that's, that Committee of the Whole recommends that council as an intro. Yeah. Is there a second to that? Councillor Rout seconds it. Now, the background is here. Would you like to say anything further?
If anyone has any questions, it is still concerning. Last night I was online looking, and there is an ad on there looking for a piece of land to rent so they can put their camper trailer on it year-round, and they're in bad need of a piece of property to rent so they can live there. So there is an issue in the county with more than I realized when I started doing a little digging. So we have a shortage of rental units. There are some being built. They're not being built fast enough, or we're losing them in between by personal people just selling their personal properties that usually were rentals, as I pointed out in the write-up. So we do have a problem. I just thought it'd be nice to send a letter off, and other municipalities could do the same, because it's not just in Halifax, because when you hear it on the news, it's almost like it's based from Halifax, but when it trickles down to all the little municipalities, we're going to have a bigger issue than Halifax if we don't get control of it now. So, thanks.
Any other discussion on the motion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I completely support this. And what struck me is the paragraph down near the bottom beginning, the 2% cap of rental increase. I think there's a lot of very good information in there and reason that should be contained in our letter. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Block?
Thank you. I seem to recall that we already sent, I don't disagree with the motion, but we made a motion to send a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing before. Did we not receive any information from that letter? I don't remember.
When?
If I may, I believe that was upon the death of the person in District 1. There were a couple of people living in a car, and that was a newly purchased car, and the floor had holes in it. And one person died as a result of
when was that?
Carbon monoxide poisoning. I think in January, February of last year.
It was a while back.
And we sent a letter to the former Minister of Municipal Affairs in the previous government, raising our concerns about the homelessness.
January, February of 2020.
Of 2021.
21.
Well, with the new council, yes, we did. It was, there were facts and figures put in it there was a letter from the people who were working with the homeless in Kentville, New Minas, and different issues in Kings and Annapolis County, the number of homeless who were there. I don't recall the answer in any that we received, but it was just past winter.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. The next is, again, Councillor Sheridan wants another motion here. Do you want to move that, Councillor Sheridan?
Sure. That municipal council send letters to all Nova Scotia municipalities to encourage them to also send letters to the province regarding the housing crisis in their municipalities.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Longmire. I don't know if I'll necessarily vote against the motion, but I think there's 41 municipalities, so we're asking staff to write 41 letters. And I think The housing crisis is well known in the municipalities.
I expect the warden would send one letter to all of them.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but we sent 41 letters.
One letter, yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably an email
Yeah.
list and send them all in one blow.
Anyway,
It could,
I don't know. I completely agree with the concept. I'm not going to oppose the motion. I don't know what effect, if we got a letter from Kings County urging us to write a letter to the minister, I don't know what effect it would have, but I'm in favor of the motion if we need to. Any other discussion? Councillor Sheridan?
I just thought it'd be helpful if we could put in the information that we have found out to see if they're having the same issues in their communities, because it might put pressure on the government to release the cap off of their rental increase.
Oh, I see.
It would be helpful.
I didn't take it. You don't really say here what's going to be in the letter.
Well,
So-
this is up for discussion. Like, I was hoping that in the letter, we could put the information that I found out in the letter, so all the other municipalities would have that information. And they may say, hey, we're having the same struggle, and
I
then
see.
put a letter forward on their behalf to the province, which would help strengthen the cause to get that 2% off.
Any other comments? Councillor LeBlanc, or sorry, Bartel?
Actually,
Yeah.
just throwing out some, just being devil's advocate, removing the 2% to remedy a problem would be creating another problem to solve the problem. If that cap was gone and then housing went and it wasn't affordable, would be causing other homelessness because of that effect. I'm just curious, just trying to think out loud.
Sure.
Councillor Sheridan?
Yeah, it wasn't to remove the cap completely. If you read in the note, it said to cap it maybe at a more reasonable rate, like 8%, 10%, or whatever. Not to remove the cap completely, just to put it in there enough that the landlord's expenses are covered. So when it comes to that, and
I just heard the commentary now of removing. I didn't hear even the discussions right now of
okay, I
adjusting.
apologize. It should have been
Should be adjusting.
adjusting, because in the notes it does say to adjust.
Okay. Just didn't want to get misconstrued.
Further discussion? Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Councillor Sheridan for putting that letter, this notice together. I too, being a landlord, find it frustrating. And the rents have gone through the roof. We are limited with housing, and affordable, be it appropriate as well. So again, it goes back to, if things line up better for the landlord, I think we can do much better. We are finding that throughout the county, people are popping up campers and all kinds of other ways of living, and it's not going to sustain them through bad weather. So, forward thinking, and so thank you.
Any other comments?
Reader.
Okay, Deputy Warden?
Thank you. We do have a housing crisis in rural Nova Scotia. We just don't see it as much because people aren't on the street as much. What we have are a lot of different families, in some cases, living in one house. We have a lot of people camping in trailers, campers, tents, for God's sake, in people's backyard where they can get a hold of some facility. We just don't see it as much. It goes on. How we're going to tackle it, God knows. I think one of the big ways is to actually send a letter to the municipal, who's ever in charge of the municipal housing or who, but get them to ease up on some of the codes that we have now for building. Some of the building codes got to be eased up on. They're not going to because, industry rules the road. But anyway, I think that's a lot of the housing problem is that it costs so much to build a house nowadays. We're up to $180 to $200 a square foot for a house. It's really getting out there. Whereas, a year ago, you could build, or a few years ago, you could build for $100 a square foot. It's not, it's doubled in prices. young folks, I don't know how young folks are gonna handle it as time goes on here. We're paying people, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks an hour and asking them to pay interest, mortgage, or even rent and living on that kind of money, you know, and rent $1,200 bucks a month now in most places, right? It's crazy. Anyway, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Further comments? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the 2-year pilot project, and we need the CAO for this. Ms. Young, could you see if Mr. Dick is available? While she's doing that, maybe we'll deal with 6:15. Can we have a motion to amend the order of the day to deal with 6:15?
Oh, yeah.
Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Cotw, that we move to 6:15. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. So, Deputy Warden, would you like to move 6:15?
This is page 76.
Is that right? 76?
Oh, I gotta go back to the start of mine.
Yeah, 76, yeah.
76.
Recommendation that municipal council approve the additional funding request and authorize the warden and the clerk to sign the subsequent construction agreement from Nova Scotia Department of Public Works of $28,000 to pave Queen Street from the bridge to Brickyard Road, approximately 0.21 kilometers, with the funding to be allocated from gas tax reserve.
Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Hudson seconds. Discussion? As it says in the background, the original thought was $60,000 when another $28,000 is required. Councillor Cotw?
I'm going to support the motion because, I mean, obviously the only other alternative we'd have is that we could go in there and patch the sections that have been cut out. And if anyone's drove across that road, you'd hit patch after patch after patch after patch. And to me, to spend the extra $28,000 now and get it done and finished is a way to go, because if we don't want to spend the extra $28,000, we're still going to have to cost share, go in there and patch, and you're going to have a patched road that you're going to eventually have to do a cover on it. So, and it's going to cost you that much more. So, realizing that the cost has come in a little high, but it'd be done and complete, that's why I'm going to support the project. Patching it is wasting the money.
Councillor, did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. Yes, I totally agree with Councillor Cotw and his remark.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. I agree with paving this road because we know what patches do. They don't stay either. However, within a month, we've received an increase of 28,000. Is there any background on why it's raised up, and would they provide us the background of why it went up so much? Obviously, it's the company itself. I would think.
Ms. Young just left to get Mr. Dick. Councillor Sheridan, can you respond to Councillor
Well, on
LeBlanc's
page
question?
79, it says the paving of Queen Street come in at 88 versus the 60. Most likely because of the time of year.
Oh, this is true. I saw that.
Yeah.
But
But that's all they gave us for information, was most likely the time of the year.
well, from previous pavings and documents we received, they don't like paving after October 31st, or we don't get a warranty on it after October 31st. I think it's that, isn't it, Councillor Connell? Isn't that what I read in the other one? Mind you, we received information from Ms. Young that they would keep the warranty for a year. I wonder if this is the same one. If this is be the same thing. Because if they're paving now, we're into November. Well, we'd be into December.
Councillor Connell?
Well, there's been lots of pavings in December.
Yeah.
I've seen them plow the snow off it and pave it. But a lot of times there's additives into the asphalt to deal with the cold and so I can believe there is a cost that they, if they're gonna put the year warranty on it, they're gonna try to make sure that they don't have to come back and do work for it. So I mean, if they have to add additives to it or do a different precaution, then as everyone knows, everything costs.
So you would say that part of this is the additives, is what you're saying?
I would say
Parts.
on the procedure and the additives. I mean, they may be telling their staff that, hey, we're gonna work Saturday and Sunday, we want this job done. I mean, obviously, we all know we're fighting Mother Nature, and hopefully it isn't gonna come for another 2-3 weeks, because I need that to do my own personal work.
Unless there's something else, I'll call for a vote. Councillor Bartel?
Just a reality check. I'd like to see it go ahead because to do a job on nice smooth streets and not that it disconnects from Brickyard Road to the bridge. But if you took a strip of asphalt paved and said, Councillor, as in the center line, Councillor Bond and I are standing on opposing shoulders of the road in the width of our desk, and that's $4,200 for that much asphalt. That's a lot of money. Not too many years back, I did my whole driveway, which if you see it before, it's a lot of paving in there. For what we got to pay for 2 meters. Like that's a lot of money, and I'm not sure that they know where it's coming from. We're getting rocked. Is there, what would the normal price of it be? Are they chewing it up and rebasing it properly, or just paving over top of the potholes and the cuts, and that's in a couple of years it's going to show up all over again in our new 88,000 a lot of money that we put into that structural blacktop. But I think we got to look at how we're spending taxpayers' money. We got to look at the end result that while they're there doing it, there's some benefit of continuing getting done. But I think we're getting roped. It was a lot, 600,000 for that was a lot to start with. Another 28K on top of that, that's a lot of money.
60,000, not 600,000.
Or 60,000, yeah. But it's still like, $4,000 just for that, multiple, that gives us the reality view on what that cost is. And it's only patching or just putting a coat on top of it. I mean, it's just the asphalt. They're not preparing the surface to get rid of the problems that are going to radiate back up through it again. So,
Councillor Morrison, Councillor Morrison, did you want to say something?
Thank you. Yes, we've just heard a very serious allegation that we are, quote, being roped. And if it is serious, perhaps my colleague might put forward a motion that we contact the RCMP or we contact the Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, or we contact some sort of an expert to find out how it is we are being roped, because that was a pretty definite statement to me.
No, it said, are we? I didn't say we are. So if you're going to do semantics on your wording, let me respond in kind.
Okay, any other comments with respect to the motion, with respect to the paving? Deputy Warden? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. I wonder if they were, and it's only a question, and I'm sure you can't answer it, Warden, but maybe somebody can, that's some staff there, is will they be jointing off the top of that piece of road before they pave it? And that's where they take the machine over it and level it all out. That's my own, it's just a question for curiosity.
Want me to go get Janice?
Well, it seems like we have disappearing staff here.
I promise I'll come back.
Next, okay. I think, okay.
Oh, well, sorry.
No, we'll go ahead.
I wasn't going to do a comedy skit or anything. I was just, no, Sam, I agree with my counselor here, Councillor Cotw. I think that on that topic, that I do believe that if you just patch, patching's better than nothing, but and the cost is, as Councillor Bartow said, is certainly not going down. But I think it needs to be done.
Yeah. Deputy Warden Ms. Young is back in the room. And so would you ask her your question again?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Warden. Will they be jointing off that section of road that they're going to be paving, which means running the machine over and joining it off, leveling it up before they pave it?
Take the old pavement off, you mean?
It'll be a resurfacing, repaving.
So they're just putting pavement on?
I believe so.
Okay, they're not joining, because it would be a crime to put new pavement over that old pavement if they don't join it off, because it would just put lumps back in a couple of years. But anyway, whatever they see fit.
Right there.
And remember, we're only talking here about the part from the bridge to Brickyard Road. We're not talking about the main part of South Street.
Thank you.
Councillor Cotw?
More than likely, the procedure will be is that they'll go in and patch all the holes, and then they'll put a lift over the top of it. Because asphalt has to have compaction. And if they don't put a patch in the holes that are there, then within a day or two, you'll be able to see them, not only feel them. You'll see every dip that they filled in, because if you put asphalt, if you put a 3-inch lift and compacts into 2, it needs solid base all the way along. So that's why they usually go ahead and put what they call scratch coat in the deficiencies where they've been dug out, and that will compact down level with the existing road, and then they would come back and put a layer in. That's what I'm suggesting that they.
Councillor Sheridan?
So we're all assuming a lot of things. Is there a proposal that they, or a contract or something that has this information in it so we do know what they're actually doing?
Ms. Young, can you respond to that?
So it's under their, I'm assuming yes, but I did not see it. It's part of their process, and we're just cost sharing on our portion.
So
We're going underneath their contracts to receive a better rate than we would have if we'd gone out just for that section alone.
So we really don't know what we're getting. Other than pay.
Other than to review, to look at the contract that was submitted, that was signed. It stipulates in there, but off the top of my head, I don't know the details.
Further discussion on the motion? Councillor Redden?
So, I understand this correctly, that this is all administered by the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works. It's probably safe to say that somebody competent is managing it, and I'm in favor.
Yeah.
Question?
Okay, I'm going to call the question with respect to the motion on the floor about paying the extra $28,000. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Ms. Young, how's Mr. Dick doing?
I haven't located him as of yet.
Maybe he's going with the planners.
Well, the next item on the agenda is the 2-year pilot project. And I sent around a memo to all councilors summarizing where this matter stands, and I indicated that at the time I sent that around late last week, neither I nor Mr. Dick, the CAO, had come to our conclusion as to what to recommend to council. I did have a discussion yesterday with Mr. Dick, and we've come to different conclusions, and I respect his and he respects mine. So it's difficult to proceed with this matter without Mr. Dick. So if I could ask that the order of the day be changed and we move to the Cottage Cove matter. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Redden. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Now, the Cottage Cove District Wharf matter is confusing and different. And I'm going to introduce this because there's a history to it. And I want you all to understand that really what we're talking about here is not the $10,000 for the wharf. We're talking about governance. We're talking about when there's a policy and when council can override a policy, and whether this is a situation where it should override a policy. So to me, that's the discussion. So the history to this matter, it goes like this. The Cottage Cove Wharf apparently needs some repairs. It's about $43,000 of repairs. So they submitted an application to the county for a grant. We have a policy that deals with these things, and I brought it with me. It's called the Harbor Authorities and Societies Capital Assistance Program. So the Wharf Society applied to staff for $10,000. As you know, I sign the checks every week. I come in and I sign the checks. And I saw this check to the Wharf Society for $10,000. And I'm new here relatively to some people, and I didn't understand why we were giving $10,000 because I was used to checks for $2,500 or maybe $5,000, but 10 was unusual. So I asked them to take that check aside, and I'd like to get some background so I understood it better. So then I was brought this policy. And the policy, I'll paraphrase, I can read it if you need. It says that we can give a grant for the harbors and wharves of $10,000 if it's for the purpose of leveraging other grants from provincial or federal governments. Okay, so that's pretty clear. That's where you get it's called a large project capital investment grant, and it's $10,000. And it's a grant for major capital projects that are approved by the senior levels of government, but which require the authority or society to provide a modest local contribution. The other type of grant under this policy is called small project matching grants. And it says each authority or society is eligible to receive up to $2,500 every year. Authorities and societies may at their option apply for multi-year allocations equivalent to $2,500 per year up to a maximum of $10,000. So I looked at the background to this application, $43,000 for the work, and the other $33,000 is coming from the society's own funds. Some of it's in kind, some of it's in cash. There's no higher level of government. So to me, it didn't meet the requirement of the large project thing, which was leveraging government money. So I went to see Mr. Dick, and I said to Mr. Dick, gee, I read this, I got this check, I put it aside, I read the policy, it looks like they don't qualify for the 10 because there's no other government money here. And he looked at it and said, you're absolutely right. So,
Can't hear.
pardon me?
Can't hear. Your sound is gone.
You can't hear it. I don't know if Mr. Hopkins can do anything about that.
Sound is gone.
He says he can't. I'm sorry, I will have to carry on as best we can.
You didn't hit the red button, did you?
The violence,
It's got nothing to do with that, it's back here.
yeah.
I would say it's probably internet.
Internet? Okay. So Mr. Dick agreed with me, and at that point in time, it's back in the hands of the administration. So my understanding is that it went to the staff, which would be, I don't know, I think it'd probably be Ms. Campbell, I guess it was.
I handled
Yeah.
it.
So, staff was of the view that, yes, they agreed with me that the ask violated the policy. But staff was of the view that council had the authority to override its own policy. So staff felt that this matter should come back before council to see whether council wanted to override its own policy in this particular circumstance, as I understand it. And the report that's before you, Mr. Dick did not approve it. His signature isn't there, and he pointed out to me yesterday when we talked about this that he did not approve this because it didn't meet policy. But he felt the question was whether it should come back to council to see if they wanted to override their own policy. So that's why it's on the agenda. And I hope everybody understands that story as to why it's here. It's really a governance issue. I don't think, I'll tell you that my own personal view is that it fits under the 2,500 for 4 years, 10,000. My own view is we should give them the 10,000 that way. In other words, I have no difficulty with giving them the 10,000. That's not the issue. The issue is the governance issue of whether we should override our policy and give the 10 now when the policy says no, it shouldn't. So, just a sec. So that's my background. I don't know if there's a motion. Is there a draft motion?
It's to approve the grant in the amount of $10,000.
Yeah, where's that found?
Page 80.
What page? 80?
80. So there should be a motion on the floor.
80. For some reason, I don't seem to have 80 right here. You got it? So the recommendation is that council approve a grant in the amount of $10,000 small project matching in accordance with. So is this for 10,000 now or 10,000 over 4 years? Because the small project matching grants is 4 years. Ms. Chisholm?
If I may, the grant is under the small project capital funding as a policy. In the history, if the wharf was not applying, when everyone applied to a senior level of government, they would require often more than $2,500. So the policy was amended historically to reflect that an organization could apply for multi-year allocations, but that would allocate their 4 years. So if they wanted $10,000 now under the small project capital grant, they would be basically ineligible to apply under the small one for another 4 years. And that's been historically the case. They were never applying for a large capital grant. They were always applying for multi-year allocations up to $10,000 under the small project capital.
So you're saying that the motion on the floor is to give them $2,500 a year for 4 years? Is that what you're saying?
At one time, yes.
What do you mean at one time?
They would receive the $10,000 if the motion is approved. However, they would be using up their 4 years of $2,500 allocations this year.
Wow. No matter how you cut it, it's $10,000 now instead of $2,500 each year for 4 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's been the past practice, and that's how we've been always directed to follow the policy as it's currently written.
Well, I was asked to sign a check for $10,000. That's how it came up. So I hope everybody understands that. The way I see the motion's not on the floor, but there is a recommendation. Deputy Warden, can you hear me?
Not a bit.
No?
I have it for the last 10 minutes.
You can read lips. Yeah, I have difficulty with the motion, and it says to pay $10,000 under the small project matching grants, which is $2,500 every year for 4 years. Anyway, that's the background. So I find the motion is confusing in itself because it's contrary to the policy. I mean, I guess let's put it on the floor, Deputy Warden, if you can hear me, and we'll have a discussion. You can't hear me?
I have copies of the policy if anybody else would like a copy.
Would you like somebody else to read?
Yeah, Councilor Bartow, would you like to read the motion?
I can do that.
Sure.
Got it.
Recommendation, municipal council approve a grant in the amount of $10,000 to Cotw District Wharf Society from the 2021-22 Small Project Matching Grants Program in accordance with AM-1.4.3 Harbor Authority and Society Capital Investments Program.
Is there a second? You seconded by Councilor Kong. So, Councilor Kong?
I'm not disputing your word on how you see the program worked. I was one of the councilors that was sitting on the committees and the communities that took these wharfs over from the federal government. At that time, the federal government allotted a certain amount of money to each wharf. How that was decided was that they went to the communities of Margarettsville, Port George, or Cottage Cove, all the way down through on every wharf they wanted to disperse. So each wharf got a different amount because it was on what the federal government was going to cost them to take it and disappear. So if it was going to cost $250,000 to have somebody come in and tear that wharf out, that's what they offered the community. That's what the community has in a fund, which you say there's no upper government level funding. It is. The money they have in their account was given to them by the federal government to help support any new additions or any repairs that have to be done to that wharf. The only avenue any private wharf, in which these are, they're not federally owned anymore, they're owned by a community organization. The only avenue of funding is sometimes through a co-op. Other than that, there's no funding for private wharfs. The federal government puts all their money into the wharfs that are still owned by the federal government. So the money they have in their account is actually money that was given to them to do projects. So to say that they're not getting upper level funding is not 100% correct.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
That money they got there in reserve is to help them when they come. The project with Cottage Cove's wharf is that the rocks at the end of the wharf that protects that wharf have eventually slid down into the ocean. Mother Nature is doing her work. Their project is to hire a company which is ready to go do it. And they're waiting for this. They need the $10,000 to fulfill their commitment. pile them rocks back up against their wharf to protect their wharf. Because the position the Cottage Cove Wharf is in is that if a northeaster comes in this winter and that end of that wharf's not protected, they may not have it anymore. So it's not that they're doing a project that's not needed. And I agree with Nancy is that historically, $2,500 on a wharf wouldn't buy the spikes to nail the 4x8s down. So historically, when a project came in, we allotted them a lot of times what they asked for, but they could not apply for 4 years. And this is exactly what the recommendation says, is that they need the $10,000 to go with what funding they have to do the protection of the wharf. And they know that they're not going to be eligible to apply for 4 years.
Okay.
But you got to understand is that they can't apply for funding because the federal government's already gave them previously all the funding they're going to get to help them do the repair. Some wharves spent that money as soon as they got it. Because we've had other communities come to this council and all of a sudden want money, and they got no money. Because they spent every cent the federal government gave them, and maybe it needed to be. But some wharf societies put that aside to make sure that in future years that they had funding to help apply for other grants.
Thank you. Any other comments with respect to the motion? Councillor Redden.
Yeah, I got a couple of small comments here before we get to the governance sort of issue. How many wharf societies are there that could apply?
They're all listed at the top of the policy.
Did I totally miss that then? The policy, right, thanks. The second question is, it says here we'll have a $10,000 remaining in the budget for the rest of the fiscal year. It also says in policy that there's a separate deferred expenditure account. I was wondering what its balance would be after this. Does anybody know that question? Because there's potentially 28,000 more in there. Okay, well, we don't have that question. To the governance issue, I'm very against us doing things outside of our own policy. I think our policy's there, and it's about making a considered opinion before you have the specific topic biasing you in front of you. But that said, the way I read this small project matching grant, we're not in conflict with our policy. But that was, it is pretty vague. I can certainly see how it's read the other way around. But I think in general I'm in favor of the
I don't think anybody's against paying the $10,000.
No.
It's, like I said, it's a governance issue that we have a policy that suggests certain ways. So I'm looking again at the wording of this small project matching grants, and maybe I misinterpreted it. Maybe it says each authority or society is eligible to receive up to $2,500 every year. Authorities and societies may at their option apply for multi-year allocations equivalent to $2,500 per year up to a maximum of $10,000. I read that as saying you apply and say, I'd like to get $10,000 over 4 years. And Ms. Campbell, you're saying that you agree with that interpretation? Or what would you like to say?
I was going to say that the CAO and I had a very respectful disagreement on the interpretation of the small matching grant. My interpretation was that it does not contravene the policy to give the $10,000. We did absolutely agree that this policy needs to be reworked so that it becomes clear. Based both on my interpretation of the wording and our past practice, I thought that issuing the $10,000 was in keeping with the intent of the policy. That said, we would want to bring the policy back so that there is clarity for future.
So I take it that the other way to interpret this, which is not the way I interpreted it when I first read it, is that a wharf society could apply for multi-year allocations equivalent to $2,500 per year, up to a maximum of $10,000, and they get it all at the front end, but they couldn't apply for 4 years rather than $2,500 a year for 10 years. I'm seeing some, okay, all right, I get it. So in fact, we may not be violating one interpretation of the policy.
All right.
Good, okay. Because that was my issue, is, of course, we'd like to give them $10,000. It's just the way I read the policy. Councillor Hudson, did you want to say something?
When was the last time that this group received a grant?
Oh, Lord.
Anybody know? Okay, Ms. Chisholm?
Yes, they received $10,000 under the same policy 4 years ago.
Yeah.
They were eligible to apply again this year.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Every 4 years.
They waited their time. They also do have a long-term strategic plan with fundraising and to accomplish other projects with the wharf in the next several years.
Any other comments? I'll let you finish off, perhaps, Councillor Cotw. I'm going to ask if anybody else has any other comments. Councillor Bartow, have you spoken on this one?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess I'm in favor of this. I think that with the environment and the winter conditions, and if they had a serious condition that's going to get aggravated, and, like Councilman Cotw mentioned, that maybe they lose their war, I think it's prudent to do what we can to make sure that that work gets done before those storms hit, and to maintain and save that infrastructure, because it would be a shame to lose it, and it would cost exponential amounts more if it had to be rebuilt after more severe damage was done. So I would be
Okay, look, I'm very pleased that there's a different interpretation from the way I read this, so I'll be supporting the motion as well. Councillor Cotw?
Well, and I wish they would have gave council a little more history on what they've done at that wharf, because just last year, the community got together. A person in the community saw the hemlock logs, and they refaced the whole top of that wharf with brand new 4x6s or 4x8s. And that was all done mostly with community help. They didn't ask for any money. What little money they had to put out was probably taken out of their funds that they had put aside. But that wharf has a completely brand new top on it. So they have been working diligently. And the last $10,000, I think they put a cement slipway from their boat house that would haul the boats up right down into the low water mark, so the boats can come in there if an emergency happens, they can get in on the river. So they have been working on it every year.
Well, I think I'll call for the vote unless there's anything else on the motion on the floor. Just pay the $10,000 now. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Can I make a motion that I abstain from that vote?
No, not at all.
I didn't vote on that because I didn't hear half the conversation.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't know if it's an abstain, but we understand that you couldn't hear for technical reasons. Before we break for lunch, the other item is Remembrance Day, and perhaps we could have Councillor Morrison speak to that, and then we'll break for lunch.
Thank you, and at the end, I'd like to make a motion. There's been a lot of media attention this year on the Canadian Armed Forces, and it's the manifestation of an increase that has been rolling for perhaps the last decade or so. And I'm sure a lot of you read the full-page article yesterday in the Halifax Herald about a Mr. Della Vella from Cape Breton and the illustrious career he had in the Canadian Armed Forces. I'm sure a lot of us have relatives who have served. One of our council colleagues has a son who is a serving veteran, and I myself spent about 45 years wearing the uniform of the Canadian military. And Remembrance Day is for those who paid the supreme sacrifice in our interest and who have served in the Canadian military and who are currently serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. And it's good to remember that in the lead up to Remembrance Day. And I do hope each of us continues our practice of going to our specific legion or legions on the 11th of November. The case with the Clementsport Legion, they started a few years ago a program they call Remembrance Week, when all of the school children and staff from Clark Rutherford Memorial School were invited to the Legion for a breakfast, and they were treated very finely indeed. And Legion members went to the school and conducted educational programs. For the last 2 years, those activities have been curtailed because of the pandemic, but it is our hope that they will be started again next year. My motion is I move that Remembrance Day be created by Committee of the Whole or Council, whichever meeting comes first before the 11th of November. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. I think this looks like a good place to break for lunch. We will break for an hour and a half, as I understand the process. Now, remember, this is the first time that some of us have met here in this council chamber. And I understand the practice is you break for lunch and go down somewhere or bring your own lunch. I'd like to, at some other time, have a discussion about having some lunch brought into us so that we can have lunch here, perhaps not take an hour and a half if we have a busy day, maybe 45 minutes. I'm afraid that with everybody leaving the building and then coming back, it's going to create its own difficulties and slow up what we're doing. Mr. Councilor Sheridan?
We never always took an hour and a half. Sometimes it was only an hour, sometimes depending on the day. So it wasn't always an hour and a half. So
You think, I'm afraid that
45 minutes sometimes.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and we can all go down and get something and eat it, and what if we all go to the same restaurant and they've got one waiter?
that has happened.
We should be putting an order in.
Okay, well, look, I'm happy. Do you want to do an hour?
Yep.
What's
An hour would usually- an hour would
Hour's
usually
good.
Hour's good? Okay, so
Hour's good.
we'll come back at 1:15. Welcome, everybody. This is the afternoon session of the Committee of the Whole for the municipality of the County of Annapolis. We've made some good headway this morning. The next item on the agenda is one that we skipped over, and it's 6.14. It's a 2-year pilot project, Valley Waste and King's Transit. There is no recommendation with respect to this matter. It's going to be discussed, and hopefully we can come to some consensus, or at least have the issue sufficiently debated that we can have a vote on what to do. I sent I sent to all of you on Friday, and because of the lateness of all this being figured out, an email that summarized where we are. And for those people that might be watching on Vimeo, we did talk about this in a previous council meeting, and this is the pilot project that we've been invited to join with the other municipalities in the Annapolis Valley. The pilot project is to review the governance and operation of Valley Waste and King's Transit. It's a 2-year pilot project, and we've been invited to join. They're hiring a new CEO just to operate, report to the new board, and the way it's going to work is there will be a new, what I call a super board, made up of the mayors and wardens in the Annapolis Valley. So the board, current board of Valley Waste will disappear. The current board of King's Transit will disappear. And this one board will do 3 things. It will operate, be the board that, I'm trying to find the right verb, is responsible for Valley Waste and is responsible for King's Transit, and will also be responsible for the pilot project, which is to determine the appropriate governance and operation to go forward in the future. The issue arose where we, Annapolis County, are not a member of Valley Waste or King's Transit. We are a customer of those 2 operations. We pay money for being a part, we pay money to Valley Waste to use their services, and we pay money to King's Transit to be a part of that group, is I think the way to put it.
Services as well.
So we've been invited to join. The cost is $60,000 or $65,000 a year, and that's for the 2-year pilot project. The issue that arises, if I, as the warden, am on this super board, I'll call it, is when I can vote and how I can partake. The position put to me in a number of emails and discussions I've had with Mayor Peter Matart from Kings County, representing the other group, is that, and there's a chart in your material, so briefly put, I get to partake and vote on everything dealing with the pilot project. With respect to matters that involve Valley Waste and King's Transit over the next 2 years, I get to partake in all discussions other than those that might be dealt with in closed session in camera. And I can only vote on issues that are not budgetary issues. These are described a little bit in the chart, but it's still pretty vague, and I think we have to proceed on the basis that it's somewhat vague. So in other words, with respect to the operational aspects of Valley Waste and King's Transit over the next 2 years, if I am on this board, then I get to vote on, I get to speak on everything, but I don't get to vote on everything. Now, Mr. Dick, unfortunately I have to speak for him, his view is that it doesn't add up. It's not, the minuses are more than the pluses. He feels that it's not worthwhile to spend our $65,000 a year and have me partake in a board where I don't get to vote all the time. If I could put that as succinctly as I could, and I respect that view. My view is that I should join the board. I don't like paying the money, but this 2-year project will form the new IMSA, Intermunicipal Service Agreements, for Valley Waste and King's Transit that could be in place for the next 20 years. I think we should be at the table, because if we're not at the table and a governance system is created, then if we want to join Valley Waste or King's Transit at the end of the pilot project, our only option is to opt into something we had no part in creating. So I think it's worthwhile to be part of that creation. Some of the issues will be, does one municipality have one vote? you'll remember, for those of you that were around before in the other council, you'll remember that there was a veto, that Kings and Annapolis each had a veto, and this led to some problems that led to Annapolis leaving Valley Waste. And from what I gather in the meetings I've been to, they don't like the word veto. The current proposal is that there has to be a majority, but Kings has to be in the majority. They don't have a veto. I would propose some kind of a voting where you have to reach 75% of the population, for example, in order for a motion to succeed. So those are the types of things that will be on the table. King's Transit, Councillor LeBlanc can speak to the issues better than I can about King's Transit. To me, as somebody from outside, I find it strange that to go from Digby to Wolfville, you have to change buses 3 times. So there we are. Do I join this board as your warden, or do we not and let them go ahead and do what they want without us for the next 2 years? That's the issue. So hopefully I've explained it well enough, and I'm looking forward to comments around the table. Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. I guess I would start with, when exactly did they start meeting?
I think they started meeting some time ago, maybe, I don't know if it's a year, but it's probably at least the beginning of this calendar year.
Mm-hmm. So there's been already a lot of discussions that we haven't been part of.
With respect to the formation of the pilot project?
Yes.
Not with respect to the future of Valley Waste and King's Transit?
Correct. But again, a lot of conversations have taken place, which puts us really behind the 8 ball. It's hard to get caught up properly. Right?
Well, I understand the issues. I think what I will say to your comment is that I didn't agree. In the pilot project, each municipality has 1 vote. I didn't agree with that. But I've been around long enough that the horse was out of the barn. You say, they've been meeting all year. They've come up with this one municipality, 1 vote. I've been around enough, I know I'm not going to put up my hand and they're going to change their mind. Okay? I disagree with it. I was prepared to accept that in order to be part of the bigger project going forward. But you're absolutely right. There was a lot of history before. And the reason why we weren't maybe invited earlier is we were suing each other.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. However, at the same time, we were customers of King's Transit.
We were, all
right?
through that piece, yeah.
So half of that relationship was still intact. So I find it frustrating. You know, it's a fair chunk of money. I do believe we should be at that table. I think we need to be at that table. Financially, I think they would want us there and our participation. You know, we're probably going to be great partners in the future. Here's hoping, right? But the way that this has all come about, I'm just not overly satisfied, and certainly the scheme on the voting doesn't sit well with me. I think we should all be coming to that table with equal and fair representation and vote. So I don't see one person being more important than the other. It's a really tough place for me to say where I would sit with.
It is for me too. I respect David's opinion. I really see it. I struggle with mine, and I just fall on the other side of the line. But it's not like I'm way over here. I'm just falling over the line.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor LeBlanc?
I will speak on the King's Transit side. When it first started, it was only, the IMSA was only for Valley Waste. And then it was last year that it was brought up that they wanted to include King's Transit into it, which is 2 different entities. Where we were partners per se to the King's Transit itself, but we were not voting board members. So we're paying partners. Same thing as Digby County. But now in this ISMA, what did I say right?
IMSA.
They combined both of them together But it's two different things, plus they excluded one of the partners. Digby County has not been involved.
You're right.
So to me, this is a pilot project that's defunct to begin with. If you're looking at the King's Transit side.
I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think Digby's part of it.
I've not heard from their rep the last time after the meeting. I asked, so were you contacted about the new pilot program? No. So I don't understand that bit at all. That's confusing. So this has been going on for a while. The Valley Waste part, and King's Transit has been pulled in, and this board is supposed to be what you call the super board, to be able to and hire these other people at the top to manage these two boards.
For 2 years, yeah.
But we have no stake in the game again. We have no voting rights. But we're supposed to pay $60,000 to go there and listen. You can say all you want, but you're just sitting there and you're still listening.
We have full voting rights with respect to the future of Valley Waste and King's Transit. But we don't have full voting rights with respect to the current operations of Valley Waste and King's Transit. So if they were going to hire a new manager and go in camera on a personnel matter, I would not be able to partake.
So at this particular time, I see there's no warden or mayor. There's one CAO that comes from Wolfville that is on the King's Transit board. So who brings I presume it's the GM that brings the information to the new board.
You're going to have to help me out. There's a general manager for King's Transit.
Yes.
So as I understand it, the general manager for King's Transit would report to the new CEO, who would then report to the board. Remember, they're hiring a new CEO and CFO.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this is a new general manager. We've had 2 interims, one that came for a couple months, new GM, he left, and 2 interims.
No,
this is a new one.
No, the old general manager for King's Transit, I assume, would stay and keep running King's Transit. But instead of him reporting to a board, he would report to a CEO that reports to the board.
I understood what you said, but he is also a new, last month, 1 month in,
Okay.
new GM
Okay.
that's been taking the place. So that's another thing. So if you're only having to partake in half of the conversation, why are we paying full?
I don't have the answer.
I'm just quite
That's the hand we're dealt. And we can either say we're not interested, or we can say we don't like it, but we think we're better ahead to be able to be a part of forming the future of those 2 organizations for the next 2 years, in 2 years, so that we can feel better in the future about joining a regional garbage and transit system. That's the issue. I can understand there will be different views on it.
It's a lot of money.
Councillor Cotw?
Being able to speak.
I'm leaning toward the part, and same as yourself, is that I'd rather see us at the table than watch the table go around for 2 years, and then we say, oh, well, geez, if it was this, we would think about joining. If it was this, we'd think about staying with Valley Waste. If we're not at the board, at least putting our views across, then we've got to get in the mindset that we're going to pay for service. And whatever that pay for service is, we can weigh that against trying other avenues with waste and transit.
There is another, we don't always have to be a customer. We could we could apply to join Valley Waste in the future, and I'm sure they'd love to have us, but we would have to accept the governance system that they've already created. We're not gonna go to them and say, we'll join if you'll change this, 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 and this after they've spent 2 years figuring it out.
Right.
I don't think that would happen.
And that's the only reason why I think that we should be at the table. I understand. The fact is that we would have no vote on their day-to-day running their organizations for 2 years because they're running under their existing protocols. 2-year project is for the future.
Yeah.
And if we don't participate, then we're just going to have to take it what they offer and then think about what we're going to do.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm for being a part of the, and I do understand why you wouldn't have a vote on personnel during the 2-year thing, because it's a pilot project to try to make revisions and new arrangements for years to come. So they're just trying to run for 2 years until they see what comes out of this and then implement the new policies and whatever comes out of it.
Yeah. Councilor Morrison.
Thank you. It appears to me that the governance role applies more to King's Transit than it does to Valley Waste. Because you can vote on study terms of reference for King's Transit, 6 different things, the awarding of King's consulting contracts, the consideration of King's Transit related consulting reports, but there doesn't seem to be as much for Valley Waste. Is that right or not?
I didn't pick that up. I thought it was the same, but I'm just trying to look at the chart now that you're referring to.
See, number 3 and 4 and 5 deal with King's Transit. But Pierre Trudeau used to say, every once in a while, you just have to hold your nose. I guess we just have to hold our nose. Because it's better to be inside the tent than outside the tent.
Anybody else? Councilor Sheridan.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should be at the table. Change can be good. Things happened in the past that we got to let go of, move forward, and maybe this is the step we need to take in order to come back together as and rejoin Valley Waste and move on. I think it's time. We need to be in there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Prout.
Thank you. I really struggle with that mask. No, I really struggle with the fact that we'd be the second largest area geographically in both of these entities, but not have a full say. That really sticks in my craw. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to figure out who's driving the bus, and that is what it is. And there is something to be said, as some have said around the circle here, with being at the table, and I don't disagree with that. But there's just that edge there that Councillor Morrison quoted Pierre Trudeau by saying sometimes you just have to hold your nose. I'll quote, I think it was Ronald Reagan when he said, trust but verify. So anyway, it's going to be a tough
It's a tough decision. I agree with you.
For us to make, and we'll know we've made the right one in 2 years' time, whatever we decide today.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Cotw. Oh, I see, I'll be after.
So, mixed emotions, I think, same as most of the council.
Thank you.
I am concerned that we don't have full vote at the table. And as far as the whole package goes, with combining two totally diversified services under one management, kind of bothers me a little bit. And the question was brought before about Digby, and they're not involved, never wasn't asked to be, but with an intermunicipal combined agreement with the two things, they wouldn't be involved with the waste anyway. So is there a way of putting them in there as a partial person for the bus system only? So there's all kinds of questions rising. I think that if you're not at the table, you don't know what's going on, and if you don't know what's going on, it's kind of hard to back up the clock and be involved afterwards. So I like to be involved from that point of view, but if we're not involved, chances are the formulas are going to be boiled down, so if we don't pay on the administration end, we're going to get it on the user end. So maybe that $60,000 isn't an actual $60,000 that somewhere down the road, it's not going to be factored into what we're paying for the services. Maybe I'm just always looking for the snowball, but if we turn up the heat, maybe we can melt that snowball a little. I think the thing that bothers me the most is, and if this is an municipal agreement that's supposed to get things underway, it's actually part of the process. It's not saying they're not keeping the boards for each of the other for the next 2 years. Aren't they dissolving those immediately for the super board?
Yeah, once this all goes into place, they disappear, the other boards.
So it won't be for the 2 years. It'll be whatever, at whatever point the vote's made. So but not being limited, being, the second largest players population-wise to the agreement, and to not be able to vote on everything. It kind of bothers me that, why would we be put in that situation? This is a new super board. They can't say, oh yeah, it was because you weren't in everything before, you weren't an owner in Valley Transit. And we had problems with Valley Waste. This is starting from fresh. You got to put all that stuff aside and look at it to go forward. This is a board that's being put together for the future, not for the past, but for the future. And to start off by telling us, you'll be limited on what you can say or what you can vote on, that really disturbs me. I think that, I haven't heard a good reason, maybe I missed it, but as to why they want to put that restriction on Adams County.
I think Councillor Cotw nailed it when he said that he can understand that since we're not right now members of Valley Waste and King's Transit, and we won't be during the 2 years, we assume, that they understand that for operational things, when we're not a member, we don't get to vote on their budget.
But my point was, this is a new super board, it's replacing what's there now, and it's for the go forward. We're all in. We should be all in. It should be reciprocal.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I can see that point, but like I said, that's the past. We're looking for the future. The past should not be creating us those issues, because then it's starting to off on Rock Road before we get started.
Deputy Warden, you wanted to speak? Can you hear me? Deputy Warden?
He's unable to hear.
Can you speak, Deputy Warden?
Wave to him.
I'm trying to wave.
He's not.
I can hear bits of you.
Okay, would you like to tell us what you think here?
I would. Can you, you can hear me?
Yes.
Can we get out of this after? If we get in this for a 2-year time, my question is, can we get out, and if we can, how much problem it is? And what if we don't join after this 2-year thing? Where will we go? And in the meantime, we have an agreement with Valley Waste to take our garbage for the next few years, and with King's Transit. I really don't understand what the super board would bring into being, other than it would cost us a lot of money. I have a problem with the no voting rights, and I just don't see a benefit to joining the board. And I think it'll be costly. I think we'll lose a lot of control over our costs as years go by. And when I look at what we're getting for transit services now in this end of the valley, I see a bunch of old used Halifax buses. And I'm not too happy about that. But I won't be voting in favor of joining. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
If I could respond to your question, it's a 2-year pilot project. And when the pilot project is over, there should be a new IMSA, Intermunicipal Service Agreement, created for Valley Waste and King's Transit. If at that time we're not members, like we are now not members, we can either stay not being members, I hope, or we can join. But if we join, we'll have to join what they've come up with. I hope that answers one of your questions. Trying to think of another question that you had.
The future.
Can you help me out? There was some other...
In the future, we're not joined.
Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to say is there is a possibility, and it may come up before this council shortly, that we may want to join Valley Waste before the 2 years is up. I'm not saying we will, I'm not saying we won't. Right now, the management agreement that we have with Valley Waste is that we pay so much a ton. And that agreement has to be renewed by December the 1st, at the end of this month. I believe that's the date. Maybe that's the date we have to tell them what we want to do, but we will have to go through. My understanding is, at the moment, that Valley Waste is prepared to let us continue at the same rate per tonnage that we have now for the next year. That's my current understanding. The CAO, of course, is doing most of this. So there is a possibility we might want to join Valley Waste in the next little while. There's a possibility that the rate we're being charged might change. But I'm just trying to set out the situation. I'm not arguing one way or the other.
Fair enough, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Hudson?
Just a quick question. I know a lot of this has to do with voting and governance, but in this 2-year period, will ownership be discussed?
What do you mean by ownership?
Yeah, prior to leaving Valley Waste, I think we own 20-odd%.
The settlement that we made in the 2 lawsuits, the one against the municipalities and the one with Valley Waste, were a complete settlement of all matters. So we don't have any claim on any assets anymore in Valley Waste.
Okay, so we gave up that.
We did.
Okay.
Councillor Redden?
Through this whole process, I've found everything kind of vague, that there hasn't been a whole lot for me to really kind of, grasp onto and have a good anchor for my thoughts. But just sitting here and listening to everybody, I've kind of coming to the thought of, it kind of seems like there's 2 problems here. One is writing a new IMSA, and the other one is, the other function of this board is to manage Valley Waste and King's Transit for 2 years. And I don't know why you're doing both of those together necessarily. If you have a board that is managing these things, well, that's great. But negotiating a new IMSA for people who want to be involved in these things, they're not related.
You know what?
I don't.
Good observation.
I've struggled to find what it is I don't like about this, and I think that is where I sit, because I'm less concerned. The partition of voting for me is sort of, it's there. That's fine. But it's not what my hang-up is. I want to be involved in these. Principle-wise, I want to be involved in King's Transit and Valley Waste in the future. That's my kind of default starting position. If somebody wants to come forward with a terrible idea on how to do that, well then it goes away. But provided we have good contracts and a good service agreement laid out, I'm happy to be involved in both these projects from a principle level. But I don't know why they want our warden to be around or on a board that is running these two things. To me, they're completely separate opportunities. So then I look at, well, do I want to support this motion or not? Well, I think Councillor Morrison made a very good point, is put up with the stink. And because that's kind of what it is. I want to move forward and I want to be doing these things, but optimism as to having a nice looking contract come out of the back end of this, I'm not optimistic. If this is where you're starting with a very poorly, I think I'm happy to say right now, a poorly conceived idea, a poorly conceived method, I think it's really hard to start off on a bad footing and move forward in a productive way. And so when you want me to pay $150,000 to manage two organizations that I'm not a part of, because that's what these two were paying, is $150,000 for the CAO and the accountant to manage these two organizations that we're not a part of. And then there's this other idea of the IMSA. I don't get it. I mean, I guess I'm kind of like, it hurts logically in my brain to know why these are together. And when other councillors first brought up about the $150,000, I'm like, well, that's kind of the price to pay. But now I'm very much against it for these reasons. I think they want us to pay to run their organization. We're already paying to run the organization by paying our tipping fees to them. We're a customer. We're not involved in their management, exactly as they've laid out in our voting rights, and that's it. I'm really interested in being involved in forming their IMSA, but not in paying to run their business. I'm a customer of the grocery store. I buy stuff there, and I pay a management fee implicitly in those goods I buy. I'm not. Well, I guess if you go to Costco, you pay a fee to play, but like that's kind of where you're at. Is do you want to pay twice?
If I could, I'm going to try to speak for the empty chair here, and to be fair to everybody. I think he would agree with your comments, Councillor Redden. My recollection of what he said was that this all could be done in a different manner, that Valley Waste and King's Transit get the right people to run them for the next 2 years, hire a consultant about the future, and just have a consultant, and you can have it done in 8 weeks about what the future should be, have some people debate it, and get on with it. And it wouldn't take 2 years, and it wouldn't be this whole idea they've come up with. And were you there for that? No. So I'm what he would say if he was here. Again, I completely agree, but the reality is, as Councillor Longmire said, they've been working on this when we were at each other in lawsuits, and we weren't part of it. They've come up with this plan. I'm like you, I don't necessarily like it, but I'm Councillor Morrison. I'm prepared to hold my nose and join, because I think that we're talking the next 20 years. We spend a little under $2 million a year for Valley Waste, for garbage and transit, and we're talking about some governance situation for 20 years, whether we're going to pay by population and assessment like we did before, or whether we're going to pay by tonnage, those kinds of issues. So I just fall on that side of the line, but I see all this stuff too. I really do.
Yeah. I am, I think, still on your side of the line, Alan, where I'm in favor of being there because of the future.
Yeah.
But
anybody who hasn't spoken, I think we've had a good discussion. Okay, I think.
I have one question.
Okay.
This one bigger thing that concerns me is, when you're looking at the television, you see all kinds of routes and paths and whatever, but in reality, when we bought out and settled our debts, we're not a co-owner of Valley Waste anymore, and we never joined into King's Transit. So what good is paying for 2 years, $120,000, get us, because we have, we don't own any of it. So why are we getting in there to help manage it? And we might have a vote that's meaningless. So it's like, if we were still a 23% owner, it would mean more to me to be involved, to have that vote. If we're just paying our tipping fees, well, everybody else in the agreement is paying that too, because that's how the waste getting picked up and delivered and taken away. So it's the whole point of being a player in something that we're not involved with, like, except for a user. So I think that, like I said, and if the end of this agreement comes, my big point is what's going to happen then? They're going to say, if you want to stay on the super board, you have to be all in, and they'll expect us to buy out 23% of everything. And where are we going to come up with that money, and what goods to do that? It's solidifying us into the game that we're not sure that we want to necessarily stay part of until we have some more feedback.
Councilor Longmire, if you want to say something.
I'm now jumbled for words, sorry. Thank you. I'm just trying to get an understanding of what emphasis this pilot will play on the development of the new IMSA. Because wouldn't the IMSA again come back to whoever's part of, and new voting, new privilege, new, right? I wouldn't think this pilot's going to smudge right into the absolute IMSA development, right?
Yeah, I think that's the plan.
Okay, well then, yes.
Yeah.
I guess I'm with Councillor Wren when he said, they're really kind of separate entities in some sort of way, right?
Well, the idea is that they're going to create a new governance for Valley Waste and King's Transit, and if it's one, for those of us that believe that it should be regional, garbage and transit, then hopefully, if we're part at the table, we'll create something we'll want to join. Whereas if we're not at the table and it comes up something that we don't want to join, we're going to be off by ourselves, buying a service that we have to negotiate price, that kind of thing. That's the other side of the equation.
Thank you.
So Councillor Cotw, would you like to bring a motion so we can deal with this, that we join or not join?
I'll make a motion that we join the 2-year pilot project for Valley Waste and King's Transit to participate in the onward for the future.
Well, just join the pilot project is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Is there a second for that? Councillor Morrison seconds. Deputy Warden, are you able to hear us at all?
I have heard 80% of the conversations that have been going on.
Okay.
I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
And I was trying to jump in there a minute ago before before this is all done, before we got it all done. I do worry about these IMAs as they go on, as time goes on, because we're starting now with waste and transportation. And this super PAC that they're going to regionalize the whole county eventually. This is what will go down the line. You start talking 10, 20 years down the line. We're just going to have one big regionalized region, and everything, all of your services are going to be, controlled through this one super PAC that we're about to make. I won't be for it. I think we lose control. And the other thing we haven't talked about is we started down this road a few years ago of taking care of our own waste in Annapolis County. And I'm a firm believer that we should. With the way that we're talking about the environment nowadays and the environment crisis that's going on in the world, here we are. Our banana peel at this moment, and with this group, our banana peel that's made in Victoria Beach is going up the other end of the province to decompose somewhere. That's a extreme example, but nonetheless it's true. So we're not doing anything to help our environment by regionalizing and sending our garbage all over. We're a lot better off as time goes on to handle our own waste and get control of it in Annapolis County. I'm not, and as far as the transit goes, the transit now, what I see on these buses is the biggest waste of money we've ever had, is what's going up and down our county with buses, are these old buses. I mean, they're belching smoke and they're carrying nobody, and they can carry 60 or 80 people. Doesn't make sense to me, folks, I'm sorry. And if this is what they plan for us through these two groups, I can't buy into it, I'm sorry.
I think they're planning to change it, which is the purpose of the whole project. And I'm told that garbage, for example, is a product that is a volume product, and although you would be able to deal with your own environmental system, it would probably be more expensive for the taxpayers. That's the other side of the equation. Anyway, I'd like to call for a vote. I think it's been a good discussion. I think everybody's had a chance. The motion on the table is we join. And I think I'll have a show of hands. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Hesitant, yes.
7, 8. Against? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 8 to 3. It's passed. So that's a recommendation to council that we join. Councilor LeBlanc?
So I have a question. While we're recommending this to council, can we also have knowledge of where we're going to be retrieving this $60,000 per year from one bank account?
Ms. Ord, can you respond to that, or should we leave that for Mr. Dick?
We'll likely pay that under the waste cost center. I think there's a savings there, so we'd have to pay right away, right?
No, it's, I think it's $60,000 a year, so it would be $60,000 at some point. Whether we pay that monthly or not, I don't know.
Okay, so you don't know if it's for the next fiscal year or?
I don't know. Okay, thank you for that. We'll move along. I guess the warden's report is the next item. Over the past month, I've done the usual stuff. I come in once a week to sign checks, and I come in periodically to sign documents. I consult with the CAO daily. On Saturday, October 23rd, I attended a thank you reception for doctors that have moved here and medical students. It was a wonderful event. It was at the station in Bridgetown, put on by the Soldiers Memorial Hospital Physician Recruitment Committee. It was very well attended. I think there must have been, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 people. And they gave out presents to the new doctor that's in Middleton. He was quite taken by it. There were some medical students who were there that they gave gifts to. It was a good event. I did go to court for the Environmental Act prosecutions, but I didn't actually stay for the actual event because it was put off down on the agenda. I attended a couple of meetings with the Bridgetown people here in the council chambers and in Bridgetown, but I'll speak to those next week when I talk about councillor reports. On October 27th, I attended a Zoom meeting for mayors and wardens for discussion of changes brought in by the new government that might affect municipalities. Most of my time over the past couple of weeks has been spent preparing the brief on the YMCA mediation, along with the CAO. I think we actually make a good team. You've got a CA and a lawyer doing it for no fee, so it's a pretty good deal.
Keep it up.
We're on our 7th draft. We file on Friday. They file on Friday, and then 2 weeks later we file reply briefs, and the mediation is on the 13th of December. Now, I was planning today, this is pretty well our 1-year anniversary for all of us around this table. So I was planning to do a State of the Union address about a listing of all the accomplishments we've done in the last year and put it in the paper, and I will. But I wanted to wait 1 month because I'm hopeful that we'll have a lot more good news to report in a few weeks, if not a month. So my plan is to, for the Committee of the Whole meeting in December, to have a list for everybody of all the things we've accomplished this year, and I think it's quite a lot, and then to put that in the newspaper. So that's my report, if there's any questions. Okay, seeing none, then I'll move along to the Trans-County Transportation Society report. And these we receive for information, do we?
You don't really need to receive them for information because they're provided for information.
So I'll just ask the questions.
Yes. And it's a change, yes.
Yeah, so Councillor Prout is our man on the ground with PCTS, and you have his report. Are there any questions for Councillor Prout?
On page 85. Following on at home.
Well, I guess it was a good report. Well done, because there are no questions. King's Transit Authority, Councillor LeBlanc is our person on the ground. There's a report here. Are there any questions for Councillor LeBlanc? Councillor Sheridan?
So I don't have it in front of me, but I remember reading it that we were over and going to be over on budget.
Right, 22,000, wasn't it?
22,000 this year. Is that similar to last year? Because it seems like we're going over budget every year.
Well, if I can respond, that's basically mostly the gas, due to gas prices, because that had been budgeted at around 70-some cents, and we're at 93 cents from where we get our gas from. So that takes up a lot of that.
So in going forward with the budget, they say that gas could go up to $2 a liter. So
Yeah.
is that going to be taken into consideration in their budgeting plan?
Super board will figure that out. There's the papers.
Now, I found out something about King's Transit that I didn't know. I'm sure that Councillor LeBlanc knew, but when I was signing checks a few weeks ago, there was a check to pay for the King's Transit deficit. So I said, we're not a member of King's Transit. Why are we paying towards their deficit? And the answer was, we always have. And I said, let me see the agreement. So Holly pulled out the agreement, and it was an agreement that ended in 2012.
Yes.
And I said, we've been doing this without an agreement now for, 8 years? Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that hopefully the new board and the new organization can straighten out, even if we're not a member of King's Transit, how we're going to calculate. I mean, we should be paying some other method than picking up their deficit since we're not a member. It just seems to me logically as a governance issue, but I just thought I'd share that with you. Any other questions, Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. This is actually with regards to the TCTS report, so through you, Warden, to Councillor Morrison. I'm just wondering...
Councillor Proud.
Oh, sorry, Proud. TCTS, yes. So I'm just wondering, this is a question more than anything. I know around the province that they're looking at alternate methods of transportation and having attendees be able to do medical appointments and whatnot and taking the burden off our ambulance services. I'm just wondering, futuristically, is that something that maybe TCTS is going to be looking into? Just something to think about.
I would say that TCTS is always looking at opportunities to, I don't speak for their board, but I know that as opportunities come up, for example, the $5 fee to take people to get a COVID shot, they were doing that. And of course, their dialysis operation, anyone in need, they're doing everything they can do to service them. And I know down the road, I would suspect nothing is ever static forever. And I know there are changes being contemplated by the state government now. Where CTS will fall into that range, I think they'll look at things on as it arises, as comes by basis. But I know they're very dedicated to the job that they do with people who need transit. That's not, it's kind of a convoluted answer, but I'd like to say I'm sure they'll look at any opportunity.
Thank you.
Anything else? King's Transit? Seeing none, there's a report from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Sustainable Communities Conference report. That's circulated if anybody has any questions. That's item 7.4. On page 96. Seeing none, I'll move along to the Southwest Nova Biosphere Region Association report on page 99. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. What was the small name change?
I'm just pulling that up here. This is on...
The small name change has been, they moved away from the name Reserve. It used to be the Southwest Nova Scotia Biosphere Reserve.
Oh, yeah.
Well, apparently the word reserve has connotations to it that they didn't want it associated with. So
Right.
they decided to go to resource.
Or region.
Region, sorry, yeah. Sorry, region.
Thank you.
Southwest Biosphere Region.
Any other questions? Thank you. So that, I believe, is the end of section 7. And now we're on to in camera. Is that right? Is that where we are? So we're going to go in camera, and we remind you that when we come out of in camera, the intention was to go into a special meeting to deal with the $28,000 overage with respect to the paving of Queen Street, so that council could approve that if they so desired. So I'll ask for a motion. Sorry.
And we're going to add the Cottage Cove $1,000 so they can go on with the contract.
I thought we'd deal with that in the regular council meeting. Is there some urgency to that?
Well, they're waiting to get back to the contractor that's been ready to go for over a week.
Well,
You can call your as long as you state what your special meeting is for, you can cover what your special meeting is for. Normally, it should only be for one item, but if you're stating what it's for, you can do it.
okay. Then I will put that on the agenda for council to decide if they want to deal with that at our special meeting later today. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to go in camera. Moved, seconded by Councillor Prout. And I will say that as the agenda shows it's to discuss litigation matters under Section 22. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. We're now back in open session of the Committee of the Whole meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Cotw, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.